I was halfway through my steak when my 8-year-old niece pointed at my wrist and said, "Mom says you only wear that watch to impress real rich people." She said it casually, in the same innocent tone she used earlier when asking for more fries. But that line, that one hit like a punch wrapped in pink glitter. My fork paused midair. The table went quiet for a second before everyone broke out laughing. My brother, his wife, even my parents. Like it was the funniest joke ever. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I was used to this game by now. It always started with a little jab, dressed up like a joke. And every time, I let it slide. Until now. My name's Jason. I'm 35, single, and, at least according to most of my family, a bit of a mystery. I keep to myself, show up to family events when invited, and I'm not big on posting every little thing I do on social media. It's not that I'm secretive. I just don't see the point in broadcasting my life to people who only want updates so they can compare it to their own. Growing up, I was the quiet one. My younger brother, Ryan, was the golden child. Charming, outgoing, always had a story to tell. People gravitated toward him. Teachers loved him, girls loved him, my parents. They practically orbit him. I, on the other hand, was the good kid. I didn't talk back, didn't ask for much, got good grades, kept my room clean. But I guess being easy to raise means people forget you're there. After college, I moved out of state and started my own tech consulting business. It wasn't flashy, and I never tried to explain what I did to my family, because their eyes would glaze over 5 seconds in. They just assumed I worked with computers and probably made okay money. I never corrected them. Meanwhile, Ryan bounced from one job to the next, always with some excuse: bad manager, unfair hours, toxic environment. He finally landed a job at a mid-level accounting firm and married a woman named Ashley, who could turn passive aggression into an Olympic sport. They had a kid 2 years later, Emma. I genuinely adore her. She's sweet, smart, and doesn't yet understand the layers of tension in our family. The lunch where she dropped that line about my watch was supposed to be a belated birthday celebration for me. Ryan picked the place, some trendy gastropub he liked to brag about, even though I footed the bill more often than not. I showed up wearing a navy blue button-up, jeans, and yes, a Rolex. A real one. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I liked how it felt on my wrist. I bought it for myself after landing a major client last year. It was a reward, a milestone. But to my family, it was showing off. I didn't say anything when Emma repeated her mom's words. I didn't flinch, just smiled and said, "That's an interesting thing to say," and asked if she wanted dessert. Later that night, Ryan texted me. Just a simple, "Hey bro, rent's due tomorrow. Can you help me out again?" He and Ashley had been between places for nearly a year now, staying in the old guest house behind my late aunt's place. A property I owned outright, though they acted like it was some family heirloom they were entitled to. I had agreed to let them stay there temporarily after Ryan lost his last job. But temporary turned into permanent, and helping out with rent turned into covering utilities, internet, and maintenance. Every month came with a new excuse, a new story. I used to believe him. Now I just watched. I didn't reply to his text right away. Instead, I looked at the document I had finalized that morning, something I'd been quietly working on for months. The timing, I realized, was perfect. I typed back, "Not after what I filed today." He didn't respond. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe he thought I was bluffing. Either way, I went to bed that night knowing everything was about to change. But let me back up a little. Because you can't understand what I did, what I had to do, without knowing how far things had gone. See, this lunch wasn't the first time they took jabs at me. It was just the first time they let the kid do it. And when a child repeats something like that, it means it's been said often enough at home to feel like truth. That's what stuck with me. That Ashley had mocked me behind my back, in front of her daughter. That Ryan probably laughed along. That my own parents found it amusing. And that somewhere along the line, they had all decided I was just the guy who'd always pick up the check. The guy with no family, no wife, no kids, so clearly no real responsibilities. The guy who'd always be there when they needed help, because that's what family does. They didn't know about the late nights, the stress, the contracts I lost sleep over, the years I lived lean just to keep the business afloat. They didn't know about the promotions I turned down to keep my company small and private, so I wouldn't have to answer to anyone. They didn't ask. They never asked. They only saw the surface: nice watch, decent car, generous habits, and decided I must have it easy. That I could afford to give, so they could afford to take. It wasn't just Ryan and Ashley either. My parents had started leaning on me too. Small things at first, covering dinner, helping with home repairs. Then it became, your dad needs a new prescription, can you spot us? Or, we're thinking of replacing the car soon. Maybe you can help out. I didn't mind helping. I love my parents. But every time I tried to talk about boundaries or expectations, they'd say I was being cold. Money isn't everything, Mom would say. Don't forget who raised you, Dad would add. And Ryan? He'd just joke. Hey man, you make more than all of us combined. You got this. He wasn't wrong. But that wasn't the point. The watch Emma pointed out at lunch wasn't even the most expensive thing I'd bought lately. I had started diversifying my investments, acquired 2 more properties, and quietly opened a holding company. I didn't share any of this with my family because I knew how it would go. The more they knew, the more they'd ask. The more I gave, the more they'd expect. And the minute I said no, I'd be labeled selfish, ungrateful, a snob who forgot his roots. So I stayed quiet. Let them believe whatever made them feel better. Until the day they stopped being subtle. A few weeks before that lunch, I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to. I'd swung by the guest house to drop off a repaired appliance. They had managed to break the washing machine, and I heard Ryan and Ashley talking through the open window. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was walking up the driveway when I heard Ashley say, he's not gonna evict us. He needs us here. We're like his only family. If we weren't here, he'd be completely alone. Ryan replied, yeah. And every time we hint about needing help, he jumps. Just guilt him a little. Works every time. They laughed. I stood there, holding the stupid washer part in my hands, like some delivery guy. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not even hurt, just confirmation. That all the things I'd suspected were true. That I was being used, plain and simple. Not out of desperation. Not out of love. Out of convenience. I set the washer part down gently by the porch and left without knocking. That was the moment something in me shifted. I stopped justifying their behavior, stopped making excuses, and I started planning. Because if they were going to treat me like a walking ATM, they'd soon find out what happens when the bank closes. But even I didn't expect what came next. And this brings us back to that birthday lunch. To the laugh that lingered just a little too long. To the smirk on Ashley's face when Emma repeated her line. To the text from Ryan that night, expecting another handout. To the document I filed that morning. To the storm I'd quietly set in motion. They never saw it coming. 2 days after that birthday lunch, my mom called. Her voice was chipper in that way she gets when she's trying to hide something. Hey, sweetheart, she said, dragging out the word like she used to when I was 10, and she wanted me to take out the trash without asking why Ryan didn't have to. Did you get a chance to talk to your brother yet? About what? I asked, already knowing. Well, she paused, then dropped her voice like this was national security. Ashley said he texted you. They're a little tight this month, and you know how stressful things have been lately. The rent, groceries, Emma's therapy sessions. I closed my eyes. The therapy sessions. That was a new one. Ryan hadn't mentioned it. I hadn't been told anything about it before. She's in therapy? I asked, sitting forward. What happened? Oh, it's nothing serious, Mom said quickly. Ashley just said Emma's been a little anxious lately. Maybe overwhelmed. You know how kids are. It's just a precaution. But the sessions aren't covered by their plan, and they didn't want to burden you. She just mentioned it in passing. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. Ashley didn't do in passing. She was the queen of strategic vulnerability. A master of painting herself as the noble victim who never asked for help, while everyone around her scrambled to help anyway. I didn't respond right away. My mom took my silence as guilt. I know you've helped a lot, she added gently. And we're all grateful. But Jason, he's your brother. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. That phrase, he's your brother, was their trump card. They pulled it every time Ryan messed something up and I hesitated to fix it. What they really meant was, he's your brother, and you're the one who's supposed to have it together. So help him. I thought about explaining to her, again, that I wasn't a bottomless well. That generosity had its limits. That being family doesn't mean being taken for granted. Instead, I said, I'll think about it, and change the subject. I could feel it though. The shift. The walls closing in. They were ramping up the pressure, and not just with words. The next weekend, I dropped by my parents' house for Sunday dinner, something I used to do every few weeks, mostly out of habit and some half-buried hope that things might feel normal again. That night, Ryan and Ashley were already there when I arrived. Ashley gave me her usual smile, a tight-lipped, insincere curve that didn't quite reach her eyes, and offered me a glass of wine. As I stepped into the kitchen, I noticed Emma sitting at the table with a coloring book. Her head was down, but I caught her glance up at me quickly before looking away. "Hey, kiddo," I said. She nodded, barely. That was odd. She usually ran up to me, asked me about my car, or told me what she learned in school that week. But now, she seemed nervous, like she was waiting for a scolding. I turned to Ashley. "She okay?" Ashley sighed. "We had a little incident at school. Nothing major." Ryan chimed in, voice casual. "Just some trouble with another kid. She's been sensitive lately." They exchanged a glance. That kind of glance you can spot a mile away if you've spent your life around people who hide things behind fake smiles and polite small talk. I wanted to push, but I didn't. Not yet. I just sat down at the table and tried to enjoy the lasagna my mom had spent the day making. It was good. It always was. But something about that dinner felt staged. The conversation kept circling back to money. My dad mentioned how expensive car repairs were getting. Ashley joked about how their palace of a guest house really needed new pipes. My mom talked about how lucky I was to have found my niche in the tech world, and how not everyone had that kind of financial freedom. And through it all, they kept glancing at me. Not directly, just enough to make sure I was absorbing every hint. It was subtle manipulation at its finest. A performance of humble neediness, carefully calculated to wear me down. But they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know I'd seen Ryan's Venmo history a week ago. Public, by the way, because he never bothered to change the settings, where he'd sent $300 to a friend for VIP concert tickets. Or that Ashley had posted on Facebook about their spontaneous weekend getaway to a spot 2 towns over. I'd quietly screenshot it all. That wasn't struggle. That was exploitation with a fresh manicure. The final straw that night came after dessert. We were clearing dishes, and I heard my mom say to Ryan, "You know, you should really ask Jason to co-sign on the new lease. With his credit, it'd go through no problem." I stopped, turned. "What lease?" They froze. Ryan tried to laugh it off. "Oh, it's nothing set in stone yet. Just looking at options." Ashley stepped in. "We found this really great place near Emma's school. It's perfect. Quiet neighborhood, close to work, just a little out of budget. But it's only temporary, just until things stabilize." "Whose lease is it?" I asked flatly. "Technically, it would be in our name," Ryan said. "We just figured, with your help, we could get approved faster." "And by help," I said, "you mean put my name on the line for a lease you can't afford?" My dad jumped in. "Jason, no one's trying to take advantage. It's just family helping family." There it was again. That phrase. A knife wrapped in warmth. I didn't say anything, just nodded slowly and said I needed to get going. I left my untouched wine glass on the counter and walked out. No hugs. No goodbye. The next morning, Ryan texted me again. "Let me know when you have time to chat about the lease. We can go over the numbers. We really believe this could be a fresh start." I didn't respond. Instead, I spent the next week reviewing contracts and speaking with my attorney. See, the guest house Ryan and Ashley were living in wasn't just a free crash pad. It was part of a trust I'd inherited when Aunt Marilyn passed away. A trust with specific conditions, one of which allowed me to evict tenants with 30 days' notice if the property was being neglected or misused. And after some inspection, I had ample documentation of both. They hadn't paid for a single repair in 10 months. The backyard was trashed. The fence was broken in 2 places. The utility bills, which I covered, had skyrocketed. They were treating it like a frat house with central heating. I had my lawyer prepare the notice quietly. No need to raise alarms just yet. Around this time, I got another call from Mom. This time, her tone was less sugary. "Jason, Ashley told me you've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" I considered lying, but something in me cracked. Why is it that every time Ryan needs something, I'm the first one everyone calls? There was a pause. He's going through a hard time. And I'm not. I interrupted. "Do you even know what's going on in my life right now?" She hesitated. "Well, you never say." "Exactly. Because every time I tried, I was either ignored or redirected. Any success I had was dismissed as luck. Any struggle was a sign I was being negative." My mom's voice softened. "We just want to keep the family close. Then stop expecting me to carry all of it." That's when she said something I'll never forget. You have no idea how lucky you are to be in a position to help. Most people would give anything to have what you have. And maybe that's true. But luck didn't work 80-hour weeks. Luck didn't skip holidays to meet deadlines. Luck didn't stay up nights panicking over payroll and tax filings. I did. After that call, I went quiet. Didn't text. Didn't visit. I needed space to think, to prepare, to act. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to explain or justify. I was just going to move. And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. A week before the rent was due, Ryan sent another text. Hey man, we really need to finalize the cosign thing. Can you meet tomorrow? I waited a few hours. Then I sent my reply. Not after what I filed today. I knew he'd show up the next day. I could already see the panic setting in. But what I didn't expect, what I couldn't have predicted, was who else would get involved. Because that night, someone else knocked on my door. And when I opened it, it wasn't Ryan. It was Emma, standing there with a manila envelope clutched in both hands and tears brimming in her eyes. And that's where everything began to unravel. It took me a full 3 seconds to process what I was looking at. Emma, 8 years old, brown curls slightly frizzier than usual, big hazel eyes welling up like she was holding back a storm. She wore a lavender hoodie that still had the tag string poking out near the collar, probably a recent bargain bin find. She was alone. No car idling behind her. No footsteps from the sidewalk. Just standing there on my porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. Emma, I asked, blinking. What are you doing here? Where's your mom? She didn't answer right away. Just held up the manila envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. I knelt in front of her. Did something happen? Did you walk here? She gave the smallest nod. They told me to come. That sentence hit me like a slap. They? She nodded again. They said, you'd understand. I took the envelope from her, still crouching. My hands were shaking now. She looked so small, so lost. I reached out and gently guided her inside. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you some water, okay? She sat on the couch like she didn't know what to do with her body. Legs too short to touch the floor, shoulders pulled in like she was trying to vanish into the fabric. I handed her a glass of water, then sat across from her and opened the envelope. Inside were 4 things. A printed lease application with my name already typed into the cosigner section. A handwritten note from Ashley that said, "Hope this saves time. We already gave your info to the realtor. Just need your signature." A crumpled receipt for a $2,500 deposit already paid. And worst of all, a typed letter, signed by both Ryan and Ashley, giving me verbal authorization to approve and provide additional financial documentation on their behalf, without further notice. I couldn't move. I stared at the pages like they were written in another language. They'd forged my involvement. They'd given my name to a landlord without my consent, and worse, sent their child to deliver it. Alone. My heart dropped to my stomach. I looked at Emma, her little hands still wrapped around the water glass. Emma, I said carefully, did your mom tell you what was in this envelope? She shook her head. She just said to give it to you and wait. Wait where? Here. She said you'd bring me back. Bring her back. Like she was a piece of mail. Or a package they didn't want to carry. I stood slowly, feeling the heat rise up my neck. I grabbed my phone and stepped into the hallway to make a call I should have made months ago. Ryan picked up on the second ring. Hey, you got the envelope? Quick, right? We figured it'd be easier that way. Realtor said he can move fast if we. You sent your daughter here. Alone. A pause. What? Emma walked to my house by herself. With legal documents you forged with my name. I didn't forge. Come on. It's not like that. We just typed it up. It's not binding until you sign it. You already paid the deposit. That's refundable. Don't make this a big thing, man. We're just trying to move forward. Emma's fine. It's not like we sent her into traffic. You used your kid as a courier for a fake contract. You're not even sorry. He scoffed. You're blowing this out of proportion. You've been dragging your feet, and we had to act. You said you'd think about helping. I said I'd think, not that I'd sign anything. Not that I'd bankroll your new fantasy condo. Fantasy? It's not even luxury. It's basic. You're living in a house I own. Rent-free. Yeah. Which needs serious repairs. You think we're living it up here. You're living off me, Ryan. You have been. Silence. Then, quieter, more venomous. You've changed, man. You used to be generous. You used to care. No. I used to let myself get walked on. That's what I used to do. I'm bringing Emma back, I said. But you and I? We're going to have a very different kind of conversation soon. He hung up. I walked back to the living room, trying to mask the fury boiling in my chest. Hey, kiddo, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I'm going to drive you home, okay? She nodded and followed me out. The drive was silent. She hummed quietly to herself, probably to drown out the tension. I pulled up to the guest house, walked her to the door, and knocked. Ashley opened it like she'd just been napping, not a single hair out of place, phone in one hand, wine glass in the other. Oh, great, she chirped. Thanks, Jason. I handed her the envelope back. You're not getting my signature, I said. Her smile didn't budge. We figured you'd say that at first. Just sleep on it, okay? Emma, go inside and wash up. Emma disappeared down the hallway. Ashley turned back to me. You're blowing this out of proportion. You sent your daughter to do your dirty work. She's part of the family too. She's 8. She's fine. And there it was. The total lack of remorse. Like using her own child as emotional leverage was normal. You really don't see anything wrong with this, do you? Ashley shrugged. You're the one making it weird. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Not theorized. I knew they didn't just expect me to help. They believed it was my role. My duty. In their minds, I wasn't a person with my own boundaries. I was a service provider. A resource. The family ATM with a side of emotional support. And they weren't just ungrateful. They were entitled. Worse than that. They were using Emma to manipulate me. And Emma, poor Emma, she didn't know any better. She was growing up in a household where guilt was currency and manipulation was a second language. I went home and sat in my car for a long time. Didn't even turn off the engine. Just stared at the dashboard, remembering all the small moments I had brushed off over the years. Like the time Ryan said, "You don't need all that money, man. You don't even have kids." Or when Ashley told me I was wasting space in that downtown condo, and how a real family could put it to better use. Or how they always showed up with a problem, never a solution. It wasn't just the lease. It was the pattern. The way they framed every request as if it were my moral obligation. The way they expected me to smile through it. And worst of all, the way they weaponized Emma. That night, I didn't sleep. I reread the fake lease 5 times. Then I reviewed the eviction paperwork again. Added notes. Emailed my lawyer with an update and a screenshot of the forged letter. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. Can we talk soon? Your brother's upset. Says you're being hostile. 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 Like I'd thrown the first punch. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a meeting with the trustee who managed the remainder of Aunt Marilyn's estate, just to confirm some language in the trust deed. Specifically, the clause about long-term misuse of property leading to full transfer of control to me. Turns out, the clause was stronger than I thought. Not only could I evict Ryan and Ashley, I could reclaim the house entirely, sell the land, and redistribute the assets as I saw fit. I hung up and just stared at my phone for a long time. They had no idea what was coming. But before I moved forward, I needed to be absolutely sure. I needed one final conversation. Not with Ryan. Not with Ashley. With Emma. Because despite everything, she was still innocent. Still caught in the middle of something she didn't understand. And I wasn't going to let them break her just to get to me. The next day, I picked her up from school. Ashley had listed me as an emergency contact years ago and never bothered to change it. We got ice cream. Sat on a bench at the park near my old high school. She swung her legs while she ate, not saying much at first. Then she looked up at me and asked, "Did I do something bad?" That broke me. "No, sweetheart. You didn't. You were very brave." She nodded. "Mom said you'd get mad." "I'm not mad at you," I said. "I promise." She looked at her cone. "I don't like giving people papers. It makes my tummy feel weird." I put an arm around her. "You never have to do that again." She leaned into my side. We sat in silence for a while. And that's when I decided. This wasn't just about eviction. It wasn't about money. It was about breaking a cycle. One forged signature at a time, they had turned a little girl into a pawn. And they'd crossed a line they could never uncross. So I stood up, walked Emma to my car, and started writing the final phase of my plan. Because they thought the worst thing I could do was say no. They were about to learn what happens when I say enough. You always think that when you finally set a boundary, people will respect you more. They don't. They call you distant, cold, selfish. They tell you you've changed, that you're not the same generous, dependable guy you used to be. And if you're not careful, you start to wonder if they're right. The days after I picked Emma up from school were some of the loneliest I've lived in years. I dropped her off at home, made sure she got inside safe, and didn't say a single word to Ashley. Just a tight smile and a nod. She didn't even look surprised. Just said, "Thanks," like I was the doorman at a hotel she hated staying in. Ryan wasn't home yet. Or maybe he was hiding. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I already had a text from my mom. "Why are you pulling Emma into this? She's just a child, Jason. Don't use her to make a point." That one made me sit down on the edge of my bed and just stare at the wall. I wasn't using her. They were. But of course, no one saw that. To them, I was the one disrupting the fragile family balance. I was the one starting drama. I was the one making things uncomfortable. Like comfort was ever something I'd been offered in this family. It felt like no matter what I did, I ended up the bad guy. The next morning, I didn't get out of bed. Not for hours. My phone kept buzzing, calls, texts, emails, but I let it all pile up. I didn't answer my assistant. Didn't respond to a client who wanted to finalize a deal. Didn't open the email from my lawyer. I just stared at the ceiling and wondered, what would happen if I just disappeared for a week? No one would call to check on me. They'd only call to ask where the money was. That week, I canceled every meeting on my calendar. Skipped dinner invites. Let the dishes stack up in the sink. Every time I stood in the shower, I just let the water run until it turned cold. And every night, I lay awake wondering when I became the designated lifeboat in someone else's sinking ship. The eviction paperwork sat unopened on my desk for days. Not because I was scared to send it, but because I kept asking myself why it even mattered anymore. What was I fighting for? Family. The same family that didn't invite me to Dad's birthday dinner the year before, because it was just a small thing, and you're always busy anyway. The same family that forgot my birthday until Facebook reminded them. The same family that only ever showed up when they needed something, and never when I did. Yeah, that family. One afternoon, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, toothbrush in hand, watching the foam drip down my chin, and I didn't recognize the guy staring back at me. Sunken eyes. Unshaven. Wrinkled t-shirt from the floor. This wasn't me. This was someone who'd let years of silent tolerance rot into bitterness. Someone who'd given so much of himself away that he didn't know what was left. And that's when it hit me. They never took anything I didn't give freely. No one held a gun to my head when I paid Ryan's rent. No one forced me to fix Mom's car or cover Dad's medications or buy Emma's birthday gifts when they forgot. I gave and gave and gave because I wanted to be good. Because I thought being good meant being available. Because I thought love looked like sacrifice. But love without respect isn't love. It's control. And that realization? That was the bottom. Not some big dramatic explosion. Not a screaming match or a door slammed in my face. Just a quiet moment in the mirror where I saw the truth. I wasn't a brother or a son to them anymore. I was a resource. A walking wallet with just enough guilt to stay compliant. I spent the rest of that day doing nothing productive. I made a grilled cheese. Ate it on the floor in front of the TV. Watched reruns of old detective shows, the kind my Aunt Marilyn used to love. And then I pulled out the photo box she left me. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside were dozens of old Polaroids. Me at age 7, helping her paint the fence at that very guest house. Ryan sitting in her lap as she read him The Wind in the Willows. Her dog Rufus, tail midwag in every shot. Receipts, handwritten letters, and a Christmas card where she wrote, in her neat, looping script, "To my favorite nephews. May you always look after each other the way I looked after you." I remember reading that card at her funeral and thinking, I will. But I was the only one who ever tried. I closed the box and finally walked into my office. Opened the legal envelope. Sat down. And started reading every word. Carefully. Intentionally. Because if I was going to walk away from this, really walk away, I needed to do it the right way. The smart way. The final way. That night, I made a list. Not of revenge. Not of punishments. But of boundaries. Clear, non-negotiable boundaries. No more financial assistance unless legally documented as a loan with repayment terms. No more property use without signed, time-limited agreements. No co-signing. No favors. No just this one time. No contact unless it's mutual, respectful, and not need-based. And most of all, no more guilt. I printed the list. Taped it to the inside of my medicine cabinet. The first thing I'd see every morning from now on. And the next day, I went back to work. Not just because I needed to, but because I wanted to. I replied to my assistant. Reconfirmed the deal. Booked a trip to Chicago to meet a potential partner I'd been dodging for months. And in between meetings, I drafted a letter to Ryan and Ashley. A formal, notarized notice of eviction. 30 days. No extensions. No negotiation. I didn't send it yet, because something told me I needed to wait just a little longer. And then, like fate knew I needed confirmation, it came. On a Thursday afternoon, I got a call from a woman named Claire. She introduced herself as the leasing manager for the Parkside Terrace property, the same one Ryan and Ashley had tried to trick me into co-signing. She sounded nervous. "Hi, Mr. Clark. I'm just calling to verify some details on the paperwork your family submitted. There's some inconsistency." "What kind of inconsistency?" I asked. "Well, the signatures don't match. And there's a discrepancy in your reported income. It lists you as the sole financial backer, but the pay stubs look doctored." My stomach turned cold. "They forged pay stubs too?" "I didn't say that," she replied quickly. "But let's just say the documents raised some red flags." I exhaled through my nose. "Thank you for calling. I appreciate your professionalism." She hesitated. "I'm sorry, Mr. Clark. I get the sense you weren't actually aware of this application." "I wasn't." Another pause. "In that case, if you'd like to provide a statement of non-involvement, we can ensure this isn't reported under your name." I agreed. Hung up. Sat in stunned silence for a minute. They didn't just cross the line. They set it on fire and danced in the ashes. That night, I emailed my lawyer everything. The fake lease. The forged documents. The phone call with the leasing office. I told her I was ready. And I was. Because this wasn't just an eviction anymore. This was liberation. I'd spent years slowly sinking under the weight of someone else's comfort. Of being a good son. Of keeping the peace. Of doing the right thing. But none of it was right. None of it was peace. And as much as it hurt, because believe me, it did hurt, I had finally reached the moment where the fear of being the villain paled in comparison to the pain of being their pawn. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. The first thing I did was change the locks. Not on the guest house. Yet, but on everything else. My downtown condo. My office. My digital life. I updated every password, pulled my credit reports from all 3 bureaus, and placed a fraud alert just in case Ryan got any more creative. I didn't think he'd stoop lower than forging documents. But then again, I never thought he'd use his daughter as a delivery system either. I even went as far as hiring a cybersecurity consultant to do a sweep of my devices. She found a few apps on my old iPad, left at my parents' house during a family weekend last year, that had been remotely accessed and linked to Ashley's Google account. Whether that was malicious or just sloppy didn't matter. I wiped the device and tossed it into a drawer I didn't plan to open again anytime soon. I was done being watched. Done being accessible. And with that decision came the first wave of relief I'd felt in months. Not joy. Not triumph. Just space. Breathing room. The kind of psychological air you don't realize you've been suffocating without until it finally fills your lungs again. By the time Monday rolled around, I was already operating from a different place mentally. That morning, I put on my best Navy suit, not because I had to, but because I could. I'd spent so much time dressing down around family, trying to avoid comments like, "Oh, big shot today," or "Who are you trying to impress?" that I forgot how much I actually enjoyed looking sharp. I wasn't dressing to show off. I was dressing for me. And wouldn't you know it, I had a spring in my step the entire walk to my office. It was a new co-working space I'd moved into quietly 2 months before. Clean, modern, secure. My name wasn't on the directory, and I liked it that way. I kept it private on purpose. Not even my parents knew I'd moved out of the old shared office I used to rent. They still thought I worked out of the same dingy spot downtown, which worked perfectly in my favor. At 9:15 sharp, I had my quarterly strategy call with a Fortune 500 client we'd been slowly onboarding for months. And after ironing out the final legal points, I officially secured a multi-year contract that would pay out more in the first 6 months than Ryan and Ashley had made in the last 5 years combined. I sat back in my chair when it ended, staring at the digital signature confirmation on my screen. I didn't feel giddy. I didn't fist pump. I felt ready. That afternoon, I called Claire, the leasing agent from Parkside Terrace, and thanked her again for the heads up about the fake lease. I sent over the signed statement of non-involvement, then gently asked her to keep me informed of any further applications submitted with my information. She hesitated before hanging up. "I probably shouldn't say this," she said, "but your brother and his wife. They came by in person after I flagged the issue. caused a bit of a scene. I raised an eyebrow. Did they say anything about me? She laughed nervously. Let's just say, they're not your biggest fans right now. Good. I wasn't applying for that position anymore. By midweek, the momentum had picked up. That client deal opened the door to 2 others, both smaller, but valuable for the long-term relationships they offered. I found myself looking forward to work again, not just as an escape, but as an extension of who I actually was. Not the quiet, dutiful older brother. Not the emotionally manipulated son. Just Jason Clark, founder and CEO of Clark Systems Advisory. For the first time in years, that title felt real. And the timing couldn't have been better. Because Thursday afternoon, I finally got the call from my attorney confirming that the eviction paperwork had been reviewed, notarized, and approved. We scheduled delivery for the following Monday. 30 days. No extensions. I told her to proceed. That weekend, I drove out to the lake. Alone. No parents. No birthday dinners. No niece with sad eyes asking if she did something wrong. Just me, a rental cabin, a stack of legal pads, and a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for a non-occasion. I watched the water for hours. Thought about Aunt Marilyn. She'd left me that house because I was the only one who ever helped her without asking for anything in return. Ryan only showed up when he needed money or a place to stay. Ashley didn't even come to the funeral. Said it conflicted with a wellness retreat. I thought about the Christmas card she'd written. About looking after each other. And I realized something. She didn't mean sacrifice. She meant boundaries. Respect. Mutual care. Looking after each other doesn't mean destroying yourself to protect someone who's burning the house down with you in it. It means drawing a line so nobody falls off the edge. When I got home Sunday night, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address. No stamp. Just folded paper. Inside were 2 sheets. The first was a handwritten note from my mom. Jason, whatever's going on between you and Ryan, we can work through it. Don't let this tear our family apart. You know how he is. You've always been the stronger one. Please don't do anything drastic. We're all we have left. And the second? A printout of a GoFundMe page. Created by Ashley. Titled, Help Us Save Our Home. In the description, she claimed they were being illegally evicted by a family member over a misunderstanding, and that Emma's stability and safety were being threatened due to personal grudges and money games. My name wasn't mentioned outright, but I was definitely the family member. They had already raised $340 from friends and coworkers. My mouth went dry. They weren't just spinning the narrative. They were weaponizing it, turning their irresponsibility into a sob story and selling it for sympathy points. Leveraging Emma again to paint themselves as helpless. I sat down on the floor of my entryway, the GoFundMe still in my hand. I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't even feel surprised. Instead, I felt something settle in my chest like armor sliding into place. Cold, quiet, final. They wanted to play this publicly? Fine, let them. But they were about to find out that just because I'd been quiet didn't mean I wasn't powerful. That night, I contacted my lawyer again. She advised me not to engage with the GoFundMe or make any public statements, yet. But she did give me one important piece of advice. Start documenting everything, she said. Because if this escalates, and it will, you'll want the receipts ready. So I did. Every text, every forged signature, every utility bill I'd paid, every time Emma was used as a messenger. I created a folder called Family Fallout and filled it like I was prepping for court, which, to be honest, I kind of was. The following Monday, I had the eviction notice delivered via certified courier. I didn't go in person. I didn't call or text. I didn't even check the security camera footage. But I heard from Claire the next day. Apparently, Ryan showed up at her office again, yelled at the front desk receptionist, accused her of colluding with me, said I was trying to sabotage his family. Claire had to call building security. Later that evening, my dad called me for the first time in over 2 weeks. He sounded tired, older than I remembered. Son, are you sure this is the road you want to go down? I paused. Why do you ask? Because Ryan's hurting. Ashley's distraught. And Emma. My stomach twisted. Don't, I said quietly. Don't use her name like that. He went silent. Then, after a beat, you're not the only one who's suffering, Jason. I know, but you're the only one making it worse. And there it was. That same old tune. The idea that my reaction to the hurt was the real problem, not the hurt itself. I almost let it get to me. Almost. But instead, I said, Dad, you can believe what you want. but I'm done cleaning up his messes. And if that makes me the villain in your story, I'll live with it." Then I hung up, not out of anger, but out of choice, because I was done arguing, done explaining, done asking to be treated with respect. And as I leaned back in my chair, phone on the desk, inbox full of new opportunities, I realized this wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Because sometimes the rise doesn't come with applause or admiration. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of peace, power, and the refusal to be manipulated ever again. The day after the eviction notice landed on their doorstep, Ryan finally broke his silence. Not with a call, not with a text, with a voicemail. An old-school, 28-second voice memo sent to my email, which was strange enough to make me play it twice just to be sure I hadn't missed something. It started with fake calm. "Hey Jason, just wanted to clear the air. Look, I get that things have been tense. I get that you're upset. But there's no need to make this uglier than it already is. I know you're serious about the eviction, but you know how hard it is to find a new place this fast, especially with Emma involved. Let's just talk, family to family, before lawyers get too deep into it." Then he signed off with something that made my blood run cold. "You don't want to make this worse than it has to be, man." That tone, that quiet, veiled threat pretending to be concerned. I didn't respond. I sent the voice memo to my lawyer. She replied 5 minutes later, forwarded to documentation. "Keep everything. Do not engage." I took her advice. But it wasn't easy. I had always been the fixer, the peacekeeper, the older brother who let things go. Now I was the ice wall they were crashing against. And the cracks were starting to show. The GoFundMe campaign hit $1,400 by the end of the week. Ashley posted vague Instagram stories every other day, filtered selfies with captions like, "Pray for us during this awful time." People are so cruel. Always with a sad face emoji, never with a name. She even changed her profile bio to full-time mom, part-time fighter. The guilt campaign was in full force. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I had been preparing for this kind of fallout long before the eviction notice ever went out. Because when you grow up in a family where love is conditional, where peace depends on your silence, you learn how to protect yourself early. You learn to keep receipts. Back in February, months before the forged lease debacle, I had begun reorganizing the ownership structure of every major asset I held. My LLC had quietly taken full control of the family trust property, thanks to a clause Maryland included that allowed me to reassign ownership for business continuity. The house they lived in technically now belonged to a corporate entity I controlled. The utilities had already been transitioned out of my name, scheduled to shut off the day after their eviction window closed. I hadn't told anyone, not my parents, not my assistant, not even my financial advisor, because you don't announce a checkmate before it's played. But just as I was starting to feel confident, comfortable, even, something unexpected happened, and it changed everything. It was a Thursday, mid-morning. I had just wrapped a video call with a logistics firm out of Austin when I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. Nina C. Tenant Records Office. The subject line, regarding Ryan Clark and Ashley Clark, property history request. I clicked immediately. Inside was a short message. "Hi, Mr. Clark. As per your open file with the property registry regarding potential tenant violations and asset misuse, I wanted to bring something to your attention. Attached is a scanned copy of a quitclaim deed filed 2 years ago that may be relevant to your case. It was filed under your aunt's former property. I thought you'd want to see it for yourself." I opened the attachment, and there it was. Ryan's signature, Ashley's too, on a form that claimed my aunt verbally agreed to hand the property over to them, in full, before her death. They'd filed it months after her funeral. No lawyer, no notary, no witnesses, just a quiet, shady attempt to muddy the title so that if I ever did try to sell the house, they could claim ownership confusion. It wouldn't have held up in court, not for a second, but it explained everything. Why they stayed so long, why they felt safe trashing the backyard, racking up the bills, ignoring notices. In their minds, they had already won. They thought they owned the house. My house. Marilyn's house. That's when the rage kicked in. Not loud, not explosive, just a slow, simmering wave of betrayal so deep it made my hands shake. They had tried to steal from me, from her, from the woman who raised us when our parents couldn't afford daycare, who made us grilled cheese sandwiches shaped like dinosaurs, who took us to the planetarium every summer, who gave us the only place in the world that ever felt safe. And Ryan had tried to erase her wishes with one forged form and a garbage legal maneuver. I picked up my phone, called Nina directly. Nina? It's Jason. How long have you had this on file? It popped up during your ownership reassignment paperwork, she said. Usually we flag quitclaim deeds that aren't notarized, but yours didn't conflict, so it didn't come up until we ran a title scan. Is it legally valid? Not even close. No signature confirmation, no date match, no witness. Honestly, it looks like a high school project. But it does show intent. That word stuck with me. Intent. I asked her to send me a certified copy. She overnighted it. And the moment it landed on my desk, I knew what I had to do. I sent the document to my lawyer with one note. Can we use this in court if they contest the eviction? She replied within the hour. Absolutely. This proves not just misuse, but premeditated fraud. If you want to press charges, we can escalate. At minimum, it strengthens our case beyond dispute. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. Press charges? Could I do that? Should I? It wasn't about punishment. It was about truth. About setting a boundary so loud they'd hear it every time they thought about me in the future. But first, I needed more. I needed leverage. Something public. And just like that, fate delivered again. My assistant, Maya, bless her detail-oriented soul, had been managing my company's public social media accounts for the past 6 months. She emailed me Friday afternoon with a screen grab. Subject line, saw this trending on Facebook. Figured you should know. It was a screenshot of a Facebook group post from Ashley. A long, dramatic paragraph detailing their eviction horror story from a cold, emotionally abusive family member who inherited a property he didn't need and refused to share it with his struggling brother and niece. It had over 200 comments, dozens of likes, a handful of small donations linking back to the same GoFundMe. And worst of all, one of the commenters had shared the exact address of the guest house, complete with a screenshot from Google Maps and a caption, "If anyone wants to bring them a care package." I felt my stomach turn. They had weaponized public sympathy to the point of doxing themselves on my property. My lawyer called me that night, without me even prompting. "We need to act," she said. "This is no longer just about eviction. They've made it public. And if anything happens to your home, your safety, your business, it's traceable to this campaign. Do I have grounds to shut it down?" I asked. "Absolutely. False statements, doxing, harassment. It's a liability nightmare for the platform. But more importantly, we can now file for a restraining order and cease and desist." My voice felt hollow when I asked, "Can we win this?" She didn't hesitate. "Jason, you've already won. We're just tying the bow." So we got to work. By Monday, the legal draft was prepared. By Tuesday, we had screenshots, witness statements, and all supporting evidence compiled. By Wednesday, the GoFundMe campaign was suspended, pending investigation. And by Friday, my lawyer had filed a formal civil complaint. Quiet, professional, devastating. But the real move? That came the following Monday, when I sat across from a local journalist I'd once helped with a cybersecurity breach in her nonprofit's network. She owed me a favor, and now I was cashing it in. "Off the record," I said, sliding the folder across the cafe table, "but very, very real." She flipped through the pages. Her expression shifted from neutral to sharp in under 2 minutes. Holy, she caught herself. "This is wild. Use it or don't," I said. "But if you're looking for a story about financial abuse inside families, this is your headline." She leaned forward. "This is going to make waves." I smiled for the first time that week. Let it, because now, the story was no longer theirs to tell. It was mine, and I was just getting started. They never saw it coming. Even though I gave them every chance to change course, every silent warning, every inch of rope to pull themselves back, they only ever used it to tie tighter knots. They thought I wouldn't cut them loose. They thought I couldn't. They were wrong. The morning the process server knocked on their door, I was sitting at my desk, coffee in hand, watching my inbox refresh every 10 seconds. It wasn't just the eviction notice anymore. It was the full weight of every legal tool we'd quietly assembled in the past 6 weeks. A cease and desist for Ashley, for defamation and unauthorized public fundraising. A restraining order, preemptively filed to prevent harassment, defamation, or retaliation, complete with a binder of evidence that would have made a DA grin. And most critically, A civil complaint attached to a fraudulent deed nullification. That one hit hardest, because it meant not just eviction, not just shutting down their smear campaign. It meant the court would officially recognize Ryan's intent to steal the house and remove any future claim to it permanently. I had it couriered, hand-delivered, signed for. No contact, no drama, just business. That same afternoon, I sent an email to the city utility offices. Scheduled full-service disconnection for the guest house in 31 days, exactly 1 day after the legal grace period ended. Gas, water, electricity. And with that, the countdown began. I didn't hear from them for 3 days. Then, like clockwork, my mom called. Not to apologize, not to ask for the truth, to beg. Jason, honey, this is too far. They're scared. Emma's confused. You can't just throw them out like this. It's not you. No, I said calmly. It's not who I was, but it's who I need to be. She cried, said I was breaking the family, said I was becoming someone hard. I let her say all of it. Then I told her about the fake deed, about the forged lease, about the GoFundMe campaign, about the social media posts that exposed the address and put my safety at risk. And when I was done, I said this. Mom, if I had done any of those things to Ryan, what would you be telling him right now? There was a long pause. Then she hung up. I expected Ryan to come storming in next. Maybe with some long-winded excuse, a guilt trip about Emma, a story about how it was all Ashley's idea. But he didn't. Instead, it was Ashley who showed up. At my office. Unannounced. She walked right into the reception area, probably still used to how I ran things years ago, before the upgrade, only to find a professional, very no-nonsense receptionist named Tasha who didn't even blink when Ashley raised her voice. I need to speak to Jason Clark, she said. Tasha didn't flinch. Do you have an appointment? I'm his sister-in-law. Tasha didn't look impressed. Unfortunately, Mr. Clark doesn't accept walk-ins, especially from individuals involved in ongoing legal disputes. Ashley turned red. I mean visibly, cartoonishly red. I'm not leaving until I talk to him. So Tasha picked up the phone, dialed my extension. Mr. Clark? A woman claiming to be your sister-in-law is in the lobby. She's raising her voice. I could hear her from my end, fuming. I spoke clearly. Call security. Tell them to escort her out. Ashley's voice dropped suddenly. Wait. Jason. Click. 5 minutes later, I got a text. From an unknown number. You've made your point. You win. But you're killing your niece's spirit in the process. Hope it's worth it. I read it once. Deleted it. And kept working. Meanwhile, the article dropped. 3 days after Ashley's office visit, the local paper published a long-form piece titled, The Price of Family, When Help Turns into Harm. It never mentioned my name, or Ryan's, or Ashley's. Not directly, but the quotes were unmistakable. A man in his 30s, financially independent, manipulated by a younger sibling into unspoken agreements that escalated into forged documents, public smear campaigns, and legal drama. There were pull quotes. There were legal experts weighing in. And there was a quiet fury in the writing that only came from someone who had been there, or believed the person who had. The article ended with a line that still sticks with me. Sometimes the hardest part of setting boundaries is knowing that the people who made them necessary will never understand why they were needed in the first place. It went semi-viral in the city. 3 local radio stations referenced it. One of my clients sent me a screenshot with the caption, "This hits. Glad you're not letting anyone walk on you." They had no idea how literal that was. Back at the guest house, things were unraveling. Ashley had taken down the GoFundMe after GoFundMe suspended the campaign, citing unverified claims and user-reported issues. Ryan lost his temper, publicly, for the first time in years. A neighbor, Mrs. Dillon, who'd lived 2 doors down from Maryland for over a decade, called me one morning. Jason, I hate to get involved, but your brother was screaming on the porch this morning. Something about betrayal and lawsuits. Emma was crying. I thanked her for telling me. Then, against my better judgment, I drove by that afternoon. Stayed in the car. Watched from a distance. The house looked tired. Weeds had grown taller in the front yard. A cracked window had been duct-taped instead of fixed. And Emma? She was sitting on the porch swing. Alone. I didn't go up to her. I couldn't. But I made a call. To her school. To her guidance counselor. I didn't need to know what was happening inside the house. I just needed to make sure someone was paying attention. Because even in the middle of all this, she wasn't my enemy. She was a casualty. and I wasn't going to let her become another lesson ignored. The final blow came exactly 1 week before the move-out deadline. Ryan emailed me. Formal. Short. Jason, we'll be out by the 30th. Don't bother sending more threats. We get it. For what it's worth, I hope you can sleep at night. Ryan. I read it 3 times. Not because it hurt. Because it didn't. It felt empty. Like he'd poured everything into one last tantrum, and now he had nothing left. And me? I was already free. When the 30th came, I didn't go to the house. I sent my lawyer, and a locksmith, and a cleanup crew. Ashley left behind broken blinds, a cracked bathroom mirror, and a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Good luck living in this dump." But they were gone. Gone. No more late-night texts. No more fake emergencies. No more guilt. And when I walked into that house, my house, 2 days later, it was like walking into a different life. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors. The walls were quiet. And for the first time in years, I stood in a space that felt completely mine. I sat down on the old couch Marilyn left behind, pulled out my phone, and took one deep breath. Not a victory breath. Not a gotcha moment. Just peace. And that was the real revenge. Because they wanted me to stay angry. To stay reactive. To keep fighting. But I didn't. I just won. Quietly. Legally. Permanently. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It came slowly, like a ripple spreading from a stone dropped in deep water, subtle at first, then undeniable. A week after they moved out, I started getting the check-ins. Not from Ryan or Ashley, but from their friends. People I hadn't heard from in years. Old high school classmates. A cousin I hadn't spoken to since college. Even a guy who used to mow Marilyn's lawn who randomly sent me a Facebook message. "Hey man, I heard what's going on. Just wanted to say, you're doing what you have to do." Some people forget help isn't owed. That's when I knew the article had done more than just stir up local sympathy. It had shifted the narrative. Ashley and Ryan couldn't control the story anymore. Not after screenshots of the forged lease started making rounds in comment sections. Not after someone on Reddit linked the GoFundMe page to an article about fake family fundraising scams. Not after one of Ashley's coworkers posted a now-deleted tweet. Imagine accusing your brother-in-law of stealing from a child, while you're embezzling sympathy donations for a house you trashed. Bold strategy. I didn't engage. Didn't post a thing. Didn't feed the fire. I just watched. Waited. And one by one, the consequences rolled in. Ashley lost her job first. Apparently, someone forwarded the article and screenshots of her GoFundMe to her employer. HR launched an investigation. Within 72 hours, she was let go due to conduct unbecoming of a company representative. She tried to spin it on Facebook, of course. Wrote a long, self-pitying post about corporate greed and how speaking up cost her everything. It got 2 likes and a comment from some distant aunt who replied with a single praying hands emoji. A week later, she deleted her profile entirely. Ryan, meanwhile, didn't go down in one dramatic collapse. His fall was slower. Sadder. His job at the accounting firm had always been precarious. He was good enough to stay under the radar, but not good enough to promote. When the article dropped and word spread, he got called in just for a chat. From what I heard, they didn't fire him, but they did cut his hours. He tried applying for new jobs, but every time he put Clark House LLC on a rental application, my company name, tied to the trust property, it triggered questions. Questions he couldn't answer. Questions that ended applications before they started. Last I heard, they were living in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. No backyard, no guest house, no porch swing, just 4 walls and a lease they actually had to pay for. Ryan emailed me once more. This time, it wasn't angry. It wasn't accusatory. It was hollow. "Jason, it's done. You win. I still think you overreacted. But I guess you were always good at walking away when things got uncomfortable. I hope you enjoy your silence." I didn't reply, because I wasn't enjoying the silence. I was living in it. My parents stayed quiet for a long time. Weeks passed without a word. Then, on a Sunday morning, I got a knock on my door. It was my dad. He looked older, smaller somehow, like the weight of it all had finally sunk in. He didn't ask to come in, just stood there on the porch and said, "I read the article." I nodded. He stared at the ground. I didn't know about the deed, or the forged lease. "I believe you," I said, "but I should have. I should have asked. I should have listened when you said something felt off. He paused, swallowed hard. I kept hoping it was a phase, that Ryan would grow up, that you two would figure it out. But I think I missed how far gone it really was. He looked up at me then. I'm sorry, son. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from either of them in years. Not a deflection, not an excuse, just honest. And it didn't fix everything, but it helped. I nodded slowly. I know. He left without asking for anything. That was the difference. 2 months passed. I repainted the guest house, replaced the broken window, tore out the weed-choked lawn, and had new grass laid. I even added solar panels, something Marilyn had always talked about but never gotten around to doing. Then, I turned it into something new. Not a rental, not a family crash pad, a program. 1 unit, fully refurbished, dedicated to temporary housing for displaced youth who'd aged out of foster care. I partnered with a nonprofit in the city, offered it rent-free for 5-year cycles, 1 young adult at a time, a real second chance. The first resident was a 19-year-old named Mateo. Quiet, respectful, worked nights at a bakery, saved every dime. The first night he moved in, he left a note on the kitchen counter. I've never had a place to myself before. Thank you for trusting me. I won't waste it. That night, I cried for the first time since all of it began. Not for Ryan, not for Ashley, for Marilyn. Because I knew, wherever she was, she'd be proud. As for Emma, I didn't see her again for a long time. And that was intentional. I needed distance. She needed peace. But one day, about 6 months after everything settled, I got a letter. Handwritten, neatly folded. No return address. Just, Dear Uncle Jason, I miss you. I don't understand everything that happened, but I know things got bad between Mom and Dad and you. I'm okay, but I wanted to say thank you for always being nice to me. I remember the dinosaur pancakes and how you came to my school that time when no one else could. I still have the blue bracelet you got me at the fair. It's in my drawer. I don't wear it much, but I look at it when I'm sad. I hope we can talk again someday. Love, Emma. I read it 5 times. Then I put it in a frame. Not because I needed to be reminded of what I lost, but because I needed to remember why I did it. Emma wasn't my responsibility, but I'd still protected her. By walking away from the people who kept using her as a shield. People always say revenge is loud, explosive, violent. But that's not true. Sometimes revenge is quiet, calm, legal, measured. Sometimes it looks like repainting a porch your brother never paid for. Sometimes it sounds like your mother sitting silently through dinner, unsure of how to bring up the thing she swore she'd never forgive you for. Sometimes it feels like a house that's finally empty and finally free. And sometimes it's a little girl's letter on your desk, thanking you for doing the right thing, even when everyone else thought it was wrong. That's the thing they never tell you about revenge. You don't get peace by hurting the people who hurt you. You get peace by removing them from the parts of your life that matter. And then, you build something better. Brick by quiet, glorious brick. My name's Evan, I'm 32, and up until last Christmas, I thought my family was flawed but functional. You know, the kind of dysfunction you roll your eyes at but tolerate because, well, they're family. That illusion shattered in the weeks following my breakup with Kara. We'd been together for nearly 6 years. My mom used to call her the daughter she never had. My cousins invited her to girls' nights and spa weekends. She fit in like some custom puzzle piece my family didn't know they were missing. So when things fell apart between us, I didn't expect them to throw her out, but I didn't expect them to throw me out either. The breakup wasn't messy, at least not from the outside. No cheating, no screaming matches. Just slow emotional erosion. Kara wanted kids yesterday, and I wasn't sure I wanted them at all. We tried counseling, we talked, we argued, we cried. Eventually, she packed a suitcase, left me the apartment key, and walked out. I didn't chase her. That, apparently, was my big crime. I didn't tell anyone right away. I needed space. But Kara did. She went straight to my mom's house, sobbing, saying she didn't know what went wrong, that I just gave up on her. My mother called me 3 days later, not to ask how I was, not even to confirm the breakup. She just said, I hope you know you've hurt her deeply, Evan. She deserves better. Click. That was it. The next week, I got a group text from my aunt, confirming details for the annual family Christmas dinner. Location, Grandma's house, same as always. Time, 5 p.m. sharp. I hadn't decided if I'd go. Everything felt raw and weird. Then I noticed something odd. Kara was tagged in the group. Kara, my ex, who hadn't been family for barely a month. So I replied, asking if that was a mistake. My uncle answered before anyone else. She's still family to us, Evan. Don't make this awkward. Don't make this awkward. The phrase ricocheted in my head for hours, as if I was the one disturbing the peace. As if I was the storm they had to tiptoe around, not the guy who lost his partner and got quietly erased from his own family traditions. I told myself not to read too much into it. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Then my mom called. She never calls unless it's serious. Hi, honey. Listen, I know this year's a bit different, she began, in that overly sweet tone she uses before saying something awful. But we've all decided it would be best if you come to Christmas only if you promise not to make a scene. We just want things to be peaceful. For the kids. Peaceful. For the kids. And there it was. Not only was Kara still invited, she had apparently been given my seat. Literally. Grandma always made place cards. I found out from my cousin Jess that mine was missing this year. Kara was sitting between Mom and Aunt Lisa. It's just easier. Jess had texted, like that made it okay. Like I was a problem to manage, not a son, not a human being. I sat in my apartment that night, the silence pressing in, and laughed. Not bitterly, not angrily, just this quiet, exhausted laugh. It hit me how ridiculous it all was. I'd bent over backwards for this family. Paid off my parents' mortgage when Dad got sick. Helped my uncle's failing business stay afloat during the pandemic. I even co-signed a car loan for my brother last year. And now? Now I was being asked not to make things awkward. So I replied to my mom the next morning. Just one sentence. I'd rather freeze alone than pretend this is family. Then I turned off my phone. For the next few days, I didn't hear a word from anyone. No one called. No one checked on me. But I had a few things I needed to take care of, specifically, a few levers I could pull. See, what no one in my family ever really understood was how much they relied on me behind the scenes. They liked to brag about sticking together and doing things as a team, but when push came to shove, it was usually me footing the bill or cleaning up the mess. And I had receipts. Literal ones. I didn't do anything right away. I gave them time. I wanted to see if anyone would reach out, apologize, maybe even show a shred of empathy. They didn't. But I did notice that on Christmas Eve, Kara posted a photo on Instagram of her and my mom in matching aprons, laughing in the kitchen. The caption read, "Back where I belong, heart emoji, #family." My stomach twisted, but only for a moment. That night, I opened my laptop. I logged into the car loan portal first, the one I co-signed for my brother Josh. I didn't cancel anything. I just removed myself as the guarantor. That instantly triggered a credit review on his account. He'd missed a few payments. I knew that. I'd been covering them quietly to protect his score. Then I opened the mortgage lender's site. The payments were current, but only because I had a recurring wire set up from my business account. I canceled it. The next installment was due January 5th. Next, my uncle's storefront, his little cafe downtown that I'd helped lease under my name during COVID so he wouldn't default. I contacted the property manager and informed them I wouldn't be renewing the agreement. The lease was up in 3 months. Still, I didn't say anything. I just waited. Christmas morning came and went. No texts. No calls. Just another picture of Kara surrounded by my family, captioned, "Home for the holidays, heart emoji." My jaw tightened, but I held it. I wasn't going to send angry messages or post cryptic Instagram quotes. I was going to let gravity do its work. And it did. On December 29th, my Aunt Lisa cracked first. She showed up outside my apartment building, shivering in a thin coat, holding a Tupperware of cookies like it was a peace offering. I didn't buzz her in, but I answered the intercom. "Evan, sweetie, please, we just want to talk," she said. Her voice trembled a bit. "Your uncle told me about the lease situation. He's panicking. Just tell us what you want." I didn't answer her. Not then. I watched her through the window from my second-floor apartment, clutching the Tupperware, looking up at my building like it might swallow her whole. After a minute, she walked away, her steps hesitant, almost like she expected me to come chasing after her. I didn't. Instead, I sat down at my desk, opened my notebook, the one where I'd written down every favor, every temporary loan, every quiet bailout I'd provided over the last 5 years, and started drawing lines. Not out of pettiness. Out of clarity. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was simply choosing not to keep enabling people who only saw my value when I was useful to them. December 30th, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring out. Then again, 5 minutes later. Then a text. "Evan, it's Josh. We need to talk." Please. I'm at Mom's. Can we meet? That one stung. I won't lie. My younger brother and I had always had a strange relationship. He was the golden boy growing up, captain of the football team, charm turned up to 11. When he got fired from his job last year and had nowhere to turn, I didn't hesitate. I helped him get back on his feet, covered his loan payments, even drove 2 hours to help him move into a new place. And now he was calling me like I was the problem. I didn't reply. He called again that evening. This time, he left a voicemail. Evan, look, I didn't know what Mom and Kara were doing. Okay. I thought you were fine with it. You didn't say anything. Please just call me back, man. They're freaking out. They're freaking out. Not he was sorry. Not he felt guilty. They were freaking out. December 31st, 11:40 p.m. While most people were drinking champagne and waiting for the ball to drop, I sat alone on my balcony with a drink and a blanket, watching fireworks light up the city skyline. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Grandma, the woman whose house used to feel like neutral ground. She never took sides, never played favorites. Until this year. Her message was short. I never meant to hurt you. Can we talk? Tomorrow. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my phone and leaned back, listening to the city cheer the new year. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel pressure to fix everything. January 2nd, the dam finally burst. It was my mom who showed up this time. No warning. Just a knock on my door at 7:30 a.m. I didn't answer right away. I stood on the other side, unsure if I even wanted to see her. But part of me, maybe the part that still remembered her hugging me when I got into college, or making my favorite soup when I was sick, needed to hear what she had to say. I opened the door. She looked tired. Older, somehow. Like the holidays had drained her. Her makeup was smudged, and her voice wavered. Hi. I didn't move. Mom. She hesitated, clutching her purse like it held all the right words. We didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't say anything. She stepped forward slightly. You have to understand. Kara was family. We just didn't want to lose her too. So you decided to lose me instead? She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. It's accurate. I cut in. Calm, flat. You told me not to make things awkward. You gave her my seat. You let her take over my holiday. And you didn't even call to see if I was okay. Silence. Then, softly, I thought you needed space. I needed support, I replied. But I didn't realize support came with terms and conditions. She looked like she might cry, but I didn't feel the usual rush of guilt that used to follow. I'd spent years shrinking myself to make everyone else comfortable. Not anymore. Finally, she said, please, just tell us what you want. I looked at her. Really looked. And realized she wasn't asking how to fix things. She was asking how to get her comfort back. I could have asked for a lot. An apology. A family meeting. Public accountability. But that would have been for them. I wasn't interested in teaching them a lesson. I was interested in rebuilding myself. So I said, I don't want anything. Not anymore. She opened her mouth, then closed it. No script. No quick fix. Just the reality of a door she couldn't walk through anymore. I stepped back and shut the door gently. Later that day, I got an email from the leasing office of the cafe. My uncle had begged for a lease extension. I denied it. Then I finally logged into my bank and officially ended all automatic transfers to my parents' mortgage. The last string I had left was the business account. A shared account I'd opened years ago to help keep things in the family when we were planning group investments. I'd forgotten about it, honestly, but I checked it. And that's when I saw something that made my blood run cold. 2 months ago, while I was still with Kara, someone had made a withdrawal. A large one. Almost 5 figures. Labeled event prep. On the same day Kara had posted about a mysterious girls' getaway. And the name on the authorization? Mom. I stared at it. Then I picked up my phone, took a screenshot, and attached it to a new email. It said, Happy New Year. Let me know how you'd like to pay this back before I involve someone else. I hit send. The reply came faster than I expected. Less than 10 minutes after I hit send, I got a call. I didn't answer. Then another. Then a barrage of texts from my mother, all variations of, It's not what you think. We'll explain everything. Please don't do anything rash. And finally, this will destroy your family, Evan. Is that what you want? That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of the sheer audacity of it. As if I was the one holding the sledgehammer. As if they hadn't already done the demolition, brick by brick, and now they were panicking because someone finally noticed the house had no foundation. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed out the transaction record, highlighted the withdrawal, and added a note at the bottom. For review, this transaction was unauthorized. Formal action pending. Then I mailed a copy to the shared bank's fraud department and CC'd the branch manager I'd known for years. Nothing aggressive. Just a nudge in the right direction. I wasn't bluffing. That money was in my name. That account was opened under my LLC for tax reasons. Technically, Mom had no legal access to it. Someone must have left the login open. Maybe Kara. Maybe one of my cousins who had temporary access during the holidays last year. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that it wasn't hers to touch. The silence that followed was delicious. No more texts. No more guilt-laced voicemails. Just quiet. Until January 5th. That was the day the mortgage payment bounced. My father's name was still on the loan, but the payment had been coming from my business account for the last 2 years. Quietly. Consistently. Because back when he got sick and the family was too proud to ask for help, I'd offered to cover it behind the scenes so no one would feel ashamed. I never asked for thanks. Now the bank called. Not me. Him. My father hadn't spoken to me since the breakup. Not a single word, not even a thumbs-up emoji in the family chat. But that night, my phone rang. I recognized the number. Landline. The old house. I picked up. Evan. His voice sounded like sandpaper. Dad. A pause. Long, heavy. I just got off the phone with the bank, he said, like I didn't know. Right? I replied. They probably want their money. What are you doing? His voice was cold, controlled. Are you trying to punish us? No, I said simply. I'm just done pretending this is family. He exhaled sharply. So this is about Kara. My jaw clenched. This is about everything. You think we owe you for helping us? Is that it? I think, I said slowly, that you all got very comfortable taking from me without ever once thinking you'd have to give anything back, or even treat me like a person. Another pause. Then, you're making a mistake. No, I said, you did. When you chose Kara over me. When you invited her to Christmas and told me not to be awkward. When you made it clear that the only version of me you liked was the one who kept his mouth shut and his wallet open. I waited for him to say something. Anything. But he didn't. He hung up. 3 hours later, my cousin just called. I ignored it. Then my aunt. Then my brother. Again. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They weren't calling because they were sorry. They were calling because the system was collapsing. The mortgage was unpaid. The lease was expiring. The business accounts were being flagged. And that was before the Real bomb dropped. January 7th, I got a call from the cafe landlord. Apparently, my uncle had tried to negotiate a last-minute lease extension, except the property manager had already started showing the space to new tenants. They found a local bakery chain that was interested, and the manager had let it slip, purely by accident, that the reason the current leaseholder, me, was stepping away was due to unauthorized financial activity under the business. The cafe's biggest supplier heard the rumor. Then the health inspector, who just happened to be married to the new bakery's owner. By January 10th, word was spreading that my uncle's cafe might be involved in fraud or tax evasion. It wasn't true, not entirely, but I didn't do anything to stop it. Why should I? Let them live in the fog for a while. Let them understand what it feels like to be treated like an inconvenience, a liability, a mess to clean up later. And that's when Kara finally reached out. A long, rambling email. No greeting. No subject line. Just a wall of text. I didn't know what they were doing. Your mom said you were fine with it. She said it was still our family. I just wanted to feel like I belonged. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please believe me. She didn't apologize for the money, or the Christmas photos, or the caption that read, "Home for the holidays." Just a soft, sad attempt to reel me back into the same manipulation web they'd all been spinning for years. I archived the email without replying. That night, I went to the mailbox and found a letter from my grandmother. Her handwriting, always so elegant, so deliberate, was shaky. Evan, I don't know how we got here. I don't blame you for stepping away, but I hope you know that you were always my favorite. I just didn't know how to show it when things got loud. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. I hope you come back someday. But if you don't, I understand. That letter nearly broke me, because I could feel the weight behind it. The regret, the sorrow, the too late honesty. I cried, quietly, alone in my apartment. But I didn't call her. Not yet. They still didn't know the last piece. The trust. Back when I was still trying to build a future with Kara, I'd started setting up a family trust with my accountant. The plan was to use some of my tech startup windfall to build a generational safety net, college funds for cousins, retirement stipends for my parents, emergency grants for relatives in need. The paperwork had been filed, but the trust had never been finalized. The funds were still mine, and every single person who'd hurt me, they were all listed as future beneficiaries. Until now. I opened the doc, deleted every single name, paused, then typed one in, my goddaughter, my cousin's baby girl. The only one in the whole family too young to know what was happening. The only one I could look at and feel no resentment toward. Then I hit save. A few minutes later, my phone lit up again. Mom calling, again. I stared at it, heart calm, fingers still. I let the call ring out. Then I turned off my phone. I knew what was coming. I could feel it, like pressure building behind a dam. There was nothing left for them to spin. No angle they could work. The levers were pulled, and the machine was breaking down in real time. The next morning, I opened my laptop and logged into the trust account. The one that once held the promise of generational safety for a family that never saw me as anything more than a tool. I'd already deleted the names of my parents, my uncle, my brother, even Jess, who had always meant well, but never once stood up for me when it counted. The only name I kept was the baby girl who still had a chance to grow up outside of this cycle. The rest? They were out. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I got dressed. Not in sweats. Not in something practical. I put on a suit. A dark navy one. The kind of thing I'd worn during investor meetings, during tech pitches, when I used to pretend my worth was tied to what I could provide. Only this time, I wasn't wearing it to impress anyone. I was wearing it to walk into my parents' house with dignity. I drove the 20 minutes to their place without music. Just the sound of tires on pavement and my thoughts, unspooling like film. When I pulled up to the driveway, it looked the same, modest two-story with overgrown hedges and the same wind chimes that had annoyed me since high school. But inside, I knew everything was different. The door opened before I even knocked. My mom stood there, eyes swollen, her lips thin. Behind her, my dad lingered in the hallway, arms crossed, looking older than I remembered. "Evan," she said softly. Like we were picking up from a normal day. Like everything hadn't been unraveling since Christmas. "Mom," I said, "can we talk? That's why I'm here." She stepped aside, and I walked in, the weight of silence hanging between us. We moved to the living room, same beige couch, same faded family photos. Except one was missing. The framed picture of me and Kara from my sister's wedding. I noticed the empty space on the mantel immediately. Maybe they took it down out of guilt. Maybe Kara had asked for it. I didn't ask. I sat down. They didn't. "I don't even know where to start," my dad said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Try the beginning," I offered. "Maybe with how you thought it was okay to side with my ex-girlfriend over your own son." My mom flinched. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I said. "You gave her my seat at Christmas dinner. You told me not to make it awkward. And you didn't even call to ask how I was doing. But you hugged her in the kitchen like she was the one who lost everything." My father opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "I'm not here to rehash it," I said. "I've said everything I need to say. I came to tell you where things stand." They both looked at me then, really looked. For the first time in a long time, I think they saw me not as the son who would always come back, always help, always carry the weight, but as someone who had finally put it down. "I've pulled out of the mortgage," I said. "The bank's been notified. If you want to keep this house, you'll need to restructure the loan yourselves." My dad's jaw clenched, but he didn't interrupt. "I've also dissolved the shared business accounts and withdrawn the LLC sponsorship from the cafe lease. If Uncle Mark wants to keep that space, he'll need to sign a new lease with the landlord directly under his own credit." My mother's voice cracked. "Evan, we didn't mean to." "I know," I said. "You just didn't think I'd ever stop." They looked at each other, a quiet panic in their expressions. I could tell they hadn't planned for this. They thought the texts, the voicemails, maybe even the visit from Grandma would soften me. That the guilt would wear me down, the way it always had. But they were too late. And the money, I added. The withdrawal from my trust account. The one labeled, Event Prep. I've reported it to the bank. If you pay it back by the end of the month, I'll drop the fraud report. My mom's mouth fell open. That was unauthorized, I said. And illegal. She sat down, suddenly looking like she might collapse. My dad remained standing, stiff and silent. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, tears slipping down her cheek. "We're your family." I leaned forward. "No," I said. "You were my obligation. For years. You leaned on me. You used me. And when I needed you, not for money, not for favors, just for presence, You gave me rules. Conditions. A warning not to be a burden. She sobbed quietly into her hands. My father remained still, stoic. I stood. This is the last time we'll speak for a while, I said. Not because I hate you, but because I'm learning to love myself more than I fear being alone. They didn't stop me as I walked out. And for once, I didn't look back. Weeks passed. Then months. The fraud claim was settled quietly. The money was returned in full, likely borrowed from one of my dad's old friends. The cafe closed at the end of February, replaced by the bakery with the pastel storefront and morning jazz music. I walked by once. The windows were bright. The air smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon. It felt like closure. Just tried to reach out a few times. A text here. A photo of her niece there. I replied once, simply, hope she's doing well. She's the only one I'm leaving anything to. She never replied again. My uncle tried to smear me for a bit, called me ungrateful, said I turned my back on family. But no one listened. His cafe had failed long before I left. My money had just prolonged the inevitable. And Kara? She moved to a new city, got engaged to someone else. I found out through a mutual friend who thought I'd care. I didn't. I still had the letter from my grandmother, though. I framed it, hung it on the wall in my office. Not because it made everything okay, but because it reminded me of the one voice in the family who had tried, even if too late. Eventually, I found peace. Not the loud, triumphant kind. The quiet kind. The kind where you make breakfast in your own apartment and don't flinch when your phone buzzes. The kind where you build something not because you're expected to, but because you want to. And on my birthday, my first one spent alone in over a decade, I got one card. No name. No return address. Just a single sentence. You were always the strongest one. Thank you for finally choosing you. I smiled. And for the first time in years, it wasn't bitter. It was free. My name's Jason, and I'm 22 years old. I just graduated from university last month. Full scholarship, the whole deal. For years of grinding through sleepless nights, double shifts, and 8 a.m. lectures. I did it mostly on my own. My parents didn't pay a dime. Not because they couldn't, but because they were always busy investing in my younger brother, Caleb. He's 18, and if golden children were a currency, he'd be solid gold. Private tutors, international soccer camps, designer clothes. Meanwhile, I was patching holes in my shoes and making instant noodles stretch for days. Still, I never really complained. I told myself that when I walked across that graduation stage, everything would feel worth it. That my parents would finally look at me the way they looked at Caleb, like I mattered. I had been planning for graduation day for months. I reserved 3 front row seats under my name and even bought a decent camera so they could take photos afterward. I had my gown ironed, my speech ready. Yes, I was selected as the student speaker. And most importantly, I had hope. Foolish, maybe, but still alive. Hope that they'd show up, cheer, maybe even hug me afterward and say something like, "We're proud of you, Jason." That's all I ever wanted. The morning of the ceremony, I texted them the location again. I even called. No answer. But I thought, maybe they're just running late. Or maybe they want to surprise me. I scanned the crowd from the stage when I stepped up to give my speech. All those faces, parents clutching phones, crying behind sunglasses, smiling so wide it looked like their cheeks might split. But not mine. Their seats were still empty. Reserved tags fluttering in the breeze like little flags of abandonment. Afterward, as people crowded around with flowers and applause, I slipped away. I couldn't stand to hear one more mom say, "You made us so proud," to someone else's kid. I went home. No texts. No missed calls. I thought maybe something had happened. But when I opened Instagram, because of course I did, I saw them. On a yacht. Sailing the Caribbean. Caleb's senior trip, the caption read. A photo of my mom in oversized sunglasses holding a cocktail, my dad shirtless at the helm like some sort of budget James Bond, and Caleb laughing in the background, tossing a football in midair. They looked happy, not distracted, not worried, just happy. And I wasn't even a blip on the radar. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Then I deleted every contact, every thread, every trace of them from my phone. Blocked them on everything. My roommate came home that evening and found me sitting in silence, still in my graduation robe. "They didn't come, did they?" he asked. I just shook my head. The next day, I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle. I had a job lined up at a tech firm that I'd been interning with remotely, and they were more than happy to have me start early. I didn't leave a note. I just packed, took the diploma they'd never seen, and left. A week passed. Then two. Radio silence. Until one Friday afternoon, I got a knock at my door. I opened it, and there he was, my dad, holding a weather-wrinkled manila envelope in one hand and looking older somehow. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes tired. "Hey, kid," he said, trying to smile like we were just picking up a conversation from last weekend. I didn't say anything, just stared. I brought you this," he continued, holding out the envelope. Inside was my diploma, the real one, the one that had been mailed to my parents' address. I hadn't updated it in time. I took it from him slowly, then looked back at him, waiting. He looked around, like he wasn't sure whether to come in or stay out there in the hallway. Finally, he said, "I didn't know. I didn't realize until we got back. Your mom thought the ceremony was the day after." I swear, Jason, if I had known. I cut him off. "You were on a yacht?" I said. "With Caleb." That didn't look like a last-minute mistake. He looked down, nodding. "We messed up. I know. Your mom's been. Well, she's embarrassed, and she's not great at saying sorry. But we never meant to hurt you." I just laughed, not out of amusement. It was the kind of hollow, stunned laugh you give when someone says something so far from the truth that you don't even know how to respond. "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I said, raising my voice slightly. "You've been doing it my whole life. Graduation was just the grand finale." He winced at that, like he wasn't expecting me to push back. Like I was still the quiet, grateful kid who never asked for much. "Jason," he started, but I was already done. "Why are you here?" I asked, folding my arms. "Is this your redemption tour? You deliver the diploma. Maybe take me out for dinner, post a selfie, and feel like you did your part." He shook his head quickly. No. I came because there's something you should know." I stared at him, waiting. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Caleb asked for a car. Said he wanted something cooler than the one we got him last year. When I told him we'd have to wait a bit, he said, 'Why not just sell Jason's car? He's probably living on a bus bench by now.'" The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they were surprising, but because they were so casual, so confident. Caleb hadn't just forgotten about me. He assumed I had failed, that I was nothing. My dad continued, his voice breaking for the first time. I told him you were doing well, that you had a job, that you left because we weren't there for you." And he laughed. "Jason." That's when I realized we raised him wrong. And I think we failed you both. He looked up at me, his eyes wet now. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I probably never will. But I just needed to see you, to know you're okay. And maybe try to fix this." I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Another part wanted to drag him inside and unload years' worth of buried pain. But even that felt like giving too much. I stood there, watching him struggle with silence. It was weird. My whole childhood, he'd been the loudest man in the room. Booming voice, big opinions, always dominating dinner tables and family events. Now he just looked small. Finally, I stepped aside. Just enough for him to enter if he wanted to. He hesitated, then walked in slowly like he was stepping into a courtroom, not an apartment. I offered no coffee, no seat. I just leaned against the counter and waited. He stood in the center of the living room, staring at the little bookshelf I'd filled with secondhand novels and old programming guides. Then his eyes landed on a framed photo on the shelf. Me, in my gown, alone, holding up my diploma in the mirror. I'd taken it that night, right before I left. "You still wear that suit?" he asked, gesturing toward it like it was some cherished relic. "No," I said flatly. "I returned it the next day. Couldn't afford to keep it." His shoulders dropped again, like every sentence from me was another jab in the ribs. "Look, Jason, I know showing up now feels hollow. Maybe it is. But something broke in me when Caleb said that about you. I started thinking back. About all the times you asked for help and we told you to tough it out. About when we didn't come to your piano recital because Caleb had a soccer game. Or when you got accepted into 3 colleges and we said community college would be more practical. I thought I was being fair. I thought we were giving you independence. But maybe we were just pushing you away." I didn't respond. "Not yet. Let him sit in it." He went on. "When we got back from the trip, your mom noticed the voicemail you left. The one with the graduation details. I hadn't even listened to it. I was too busy setting up the Bluetooth speaker on the boat. That hit me. And when we realized the diploma got sent to the house, she just said, 'Let it go. He'll cool off.' But I couldn't. I kept thinking, What if you don't cool off? What if this is it? It is, I said quietly. He blinked. What? This is it, I repeated. You didn't just miss my graduation, Dad. You missed me. All of me. And Caleb didn't get that way on his own. He learned from watching you treat him like a prince and me like a placeholder. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off again. Remember when I got that internship my sophomore year? The one at the state capitol? He nodded. I called you to tell you. You said, and I quote, "That's nice. Hey, Caleb's got a game next weekend. You coming?" You didn't even ask what the internship was for. I was writing legislation drafts for a state representative. I met 2 senators. But all you cared about was whether I'd come watch Caleb chase a ball. His mouth opened again, then closed. No defense. No excuses. Just silence. So yeah, I continued. This is it. I'm not the angry kid anymore. I'm not looking for an apology. I'm not even looking for revenge. I've got a life now. I've got friends who cheer louder than you ever did. A boss who shows up. A city where I'm more than someone's backup plan. You gave Caleb the yacht. You gave me the fire to leave you behind. For a second, I thought he might cry. He looked at the floor, then back at me, swallowing hard. You don't have to forgive me, he said, voice cracking. But can I do something to make it right? Anything. That's when I finally walked over to the counter, picked up my phone, and pulled up a photo. It was me, standing in front of a black Tesla, holding up the key card. I turned the screen toward him. I bought this last week, I said. Paid in full. No loans. I've been investing since high school, quietly. While Caleb was blowing through 5 pairs of Jordans and getting B-minuses with private tutors, I was learning to code and reading about compounding interest. And you want to know the best part? He stared at the photo, speechless. You couldn't afford that car. Not even close. And now Caleb wants one. That's why you're really here, isn't it? He flinched, but I already knew the answer. Caleb's the golden boy, I said. But he's not golden anymore, is he? Because now you've realized he can't stand on his own. That without you holding him up, he falls. And me? You let me fall so many times, I learned how to fly. There was nothing left to say. I opened the door. My father hesitated in the doorway. Jason, I really am proud of you. I nodded once. Too late. And just as he turned to go, he looked back and said something I didn't expect. Something that chilled me more than anything he'd said so far. Well, in that case, I hope Caleb never finds out where you live. Then he walked away. And I just stood there, wondering what exactly he meant, until the next week, when I got a knock on the door that didn't come from a delivery guy or my landlord. I checked the peephole. It was Caleb, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. I didn't open the door right away. I just stared through the peephole, heart starting to race. Not from fear, but from something harder to name. Disgust, maybe. Disbelief. That grin on his face. It wasn't casual. It was smug. Like he was here to collect something he thought he deserved. He knocked again. 3 short, confident taps. Then, leaning a little too close to the door, he said, I know you're in there, Jace. Don't make me stand out here like a stranger. A stranger? I almost laughed. I backed away from the door slowly, phone in hand, ready to call security if I needed to. But I didn't press the call button. Not yet. I wanted to hear what he had to say. He kept talking, voice muffled but clear. Come on, man. Don't be like this. I just want to talk. No drama. Dad said you were doing great. New place, new car. Congrats, by the way. There was a pause. Actually, speaking of the car, that thing is sick. Model 3, right? All black. You always were into that clean look. Another pause, then a laugh. I mean, wild that you can even afford something like that. But I guess being the boring one finally paid off. Huh? That line hit harder than I expected. Not because it was insulting, but because it was exactly the way he used to talk to me as a kid. Boring. That was always the word. While Caleb was flipping off diving boards or getting suspended for sneaking out, I was doing my homework, planning ahead, staying out of trouble. He got attention. I got labeled. It was easier for our parents to dismiss me as dull than admit I was quietly outgrowing their expectations. I'm gonna leave you a number, Caleb continued. Got a new phone. Text me later. I just want to grab a bite. Catch up. No big deal. He slipped something under the door, his business card, apparently. Except Caleb didn't have a business. It just had his name, number, and a cheesy Instagram handle like Caleb the King. Classic. I waited until I was sure he was gone before picking it up. No message. No apology. No acknowledgement of what happened. Just a number and a nickname he gave himself, like always. For the next few days, I didn't respond. I wasn't even tempted. But he started texting. First casual. Yo, can't believe you ghosted me already. Then more persistent. You live in this whole place alone? Damn, must be nice. Then a bit sharper. You think you're better than everyone now? Just cause you got a job and a Tesla? I ignored every message. But something in my gut was shifting. I had a feeling he didn't show up on his own. I had a feeling my dad had sent him, either to test the waters or, worse, to get something out of me. That last comment about Caleb never finding me? Maybe it wasn't concern. Maybe it was a warning. But then things got weird. I came downstairs one morning to find Caleb leaning on the hood of my car, just waiting. He saw me, grinned, and waved like we were college roommates bumping into each other at a grocery store. Dude, relax. I just wanted to see the car up close, he said. You need to leave, I told him. He scoffed. Okay, chill. No need to act like I'm the feds. I'm just admiring your success, man. Honestly, I'm happy for you. I didn't say anything. But I gotta ask, he continued, leaning in just slightly, lowering his voice. You come into money or something? Like lottery? Crypto? What's the deal? I shook my head. Hard work. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Nah. Come on, Jace. You always were smart, but not this smart. A Tesla? A high-rise apartment? Either you hit it big, or someone left you something. He said it like a joke, but his eyes didn't match the tone. They were sharp. Calculating. I worked for it, I repeated. And you need to leave. To his credit, he didn't push further. Just tapped the roof of the car and said, all right. But if you're feeling generous, I wouldn't say no to you helping your little bro out. You know my ride's falling apart. Just something decent. Even a used Beamer or Audi or... I stepped forward. Just one step. He paused. I owe you nothing, I said. Not a car, not an explanation, not even this conversation. He blinked. For a second, his mask slipped. Wow. Okay. Big man now, huh? Then he turned and walked off without another word. I watched him go, not because I was worried, but because I didn't trust him not to circle back when I wasn't watching. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. He didn't text. Didn't show up again. And I started to relax, thinking maybe that was it. Maybe he'd gotten the message. But then, late one night, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. The third time, I picked up. There was silence for a second. Then a voice, low, almost whispering. You shouldn't have embarrassed me like that. You think you're untouchable now? You think I won't find a way to even the score? I didn't say a word. I know things, Caleb said. Things you wouldn't want our parents knowing. Things about that little side hustle you started sophomore year. Remember the laptop you borrowed from the university lab? The one you never returned? My stomach twisted. He hung up. And I realized something. He wasn't just here to mooch. He was here to blackmail me. I didn't sleep that night. Caleb's voice echoed in my head long after the call ended. I hadn't thought about that laptop in years. Back in sophomore year, the university gave us temporary machines for remote work during a COVID lockdown. Most people returned theirs at the end of the semester. I didn't. Not out of malice, but because mine crashed right before finals, and the IT department was so overwhelmed they just stopped answering tickets. I wiped the machine, fixed it myself, and used it to build my first freelance coding projects. It was stupid, sure. Technically dishonest. But hardly a crime. Still, I knew Caleb. He didn't care about truth. He cared about control. By morning, I had 3 more messages from burner numbers. All of them vague threats, wrapped in faux concern. I'd hate for mom and dad to think their perfect son built his future off stolen property. What would your job think if they knew? You think you're safe up there on your little tower. You're not. That last one came with a photo of my apartment building, taken from across the street. I stared at it for a long time, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from a simmering rage that had been building for years. Caleb thought he could shake me down, just like he manipulated our parents. He thought I'd crack, pay him off, hand him keys to a car or a condo, and call it even. But he didn't realize something had changed. I wasn't the same Jason who stayed quiet when our parents forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. I wasn't the same Jason who worked double shifts while Caleb partied in Ibiza with study abroad money. I wasn't the same Jason who once told himself, just survive until graduation. Now, I wasn't surviving. I was building, and I was done playing defense. The first thing I did was email my company's legal team. I kept it short, professional, and preemptive. I told them about the university laptop, admitted my mistake, and clarified that none of their work had ever touched that machine. I even attached the logs and files from when I transitioned to my new setup. I didn't know if Caleb was bluffing, but if he wasn't going to catch me unprepared. They replied within hours. One of the partners thanked me for my honesty and assured me it was a non-issue. "You've been nothing but a valuable asset," the email read. "Don't let anyone try to weaponize your past." With that armor in place, I moved to step 2, exposing Caleb for who he really was. I didn't want revenge in the petty sense. I didn't care about getting him arrested or humiliated online. What I wanted was simpler, cleaner. I wanted him cut off. He thrived because my parents coddled him, gave him money, excuses, a safety net. But what if that net disappeared? What if they saw him the way I did? Entitled, lazy, and dangerous. I opened a fresh document and began writing everything down. Not rumors, not petty anecdotes. Facts, dates, details, screenshots. Texts he'd sent me bragging about cheating on his girlfriend, forging signatures on dad's checks, faking internship documents to get into his overpriced private school. Photos of him partying on the family's dime while he claimed he was studying abroad. Venmo receipts, DMs. The whole digital footprint of a golden boy who'd never done a day of real work. I sent it to our parents with a single line. "Since you never showed up to my graduation, consider this my delayed speech." They didn't reply. Not right away. But the next morning, I woke up to a flurry of notifications. My mom. "Is this real? Tell me this isn't real. Jason, we need to talk. Call us." My dad. "Where did you get these? We had no idea. I'm sorry." And then, "Caleb, you think you're smart? You think this is going to fix anything? They'll never pick you over me. Never. You better hope I don't see you again. No threats this time. Just pure, exposed venom." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence did all the work. Over the next week, I found out from an old neighbor that my parents had cut Caleb off financially. No more allowance, no more free rent. They even pulled the plug on his lease, forcing him to move out of his downtown apartment. My mom apparently cried for 2 days. My dad stopped taking Caleb's calls altogether. I didn't celebrate, not exactly. But there was a quiet peace in knowing they finally saw the truth. As for Caleb, he tried to retaliate. I got a call from my old university's tech office a few days later. Someone had submitted an anonymous tip claiming I'd stolen school property. But by then, I'd already emailed them, explained everything, and even offered to pay the value of the laptop. They laughed it off. I'd already made a donation to their STEM scholarship fund weeks earlier. One of the directors even remembered me. So when they called back to say, "Don't worry, we get these tips from jealous siblings more often than you'd believe," I couldn't help but smile. The last time I heard from Caleb was a letter. A physical letter. Sloppy handwriting, like he'd scrawled it in the back of a gas station. No return address. No envelope. It said, "You destroyed everything. You think you're so noble, but you're just bitter. They loved me more, and you couldn't take it. Congrats on winning nothing." I read it once, then dropped it in the trash. Last weekend, I stood in the parking garage of my new office building, watching the sun hit the side of my Tesla. I wasn't thinking about Caleb, or our parents, or the years of being ignored. I was thinking about how far I'd come, and how, for once, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I still keep the diploma on my shelf, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of who I was, of what I endured, of the version of me that walked across a stage with no applause and still kept going. That Jason got me here. And now, I'm just getting started. My name's Daniel, I'm 27, and this is the story of the last time I ever let myself feel like a background character in my own family. My sister, Amanda, is 2 years older than me. Growing up, we were never especially close. She was always the golden child, the one who got straight A's, had the perfect boyfriend, now husband, and never forgot to remind everyone of how helpful she was in organizing mom's birthday or dad's retirement party. Me? I was the quiet one. I kept to myself, did my own thing. I got into art school instead of business like our parents wanted, and somehow that became my permanent identity in the family. The sensitive, struggling artist, even after I landed a stable job and moved into my own place. But I didn't mind it much until Amanda's wedding. Amanda got engaged last year, and from the moment she announced it at our parents' Christmas dinner, complete with a slideshow, I kid you not, the entire family seemed to lose their minds. Suddenly, everything was Amanda this and Amanda that. My mom started calling me just to talk about Amanda's wedding plans. Every family text turned into a stream of bridal shower updates, venue photos, and countdowns to the big day. At first, I thought, okay, she's the bride, let her have her moment. I even congratulated her genuinely, told her I was happy for her. But slowly, I started to notice things. For example, Amanda never asked me to be in the wedding party. That didn't really surprise me, but still, it stung a little. I saw photos later of her fiancé's younger brother holding her veil and my cousin Tyler, who she only sees once a year, in a tux standing beside her. I figured maybe it was just a small party, but nope, it was 10 people on each side. 10. I was invited, of course, but only as a guest. No speech, no reading, no special mention. Still, I try not to take it personally. Maybe she assumed I was busy with work. Maybe she just didn't think I'd be into that kind of thing. That's what I told myself, repeatedly. Then came the rehearsal dinner. I showed up on time, gift in hand, dressed respectfully. Amanda barely acknowledged me. She was laughing with her bridesmaids at the other end of the table, and when I went over to say hi, she gave me one of those fake smiles people give waiters when they're annoyed. The whole night, no one really talked to me. Not mom, not dad, not even my aunt who usually corners me to ask if I'm dating anyone. When I left, I had this weird feeling in my chest, like I'd just watched a movie where everyone knew their lines but me. I didn't say anything. I just nodded goodbye and drove home in silence. Still, I showed up the next day. The ceremony was at this beautiful lakeside venue, all white roses and twinkling lights. I wore my best suit, brought the gift Amanda had listed on her registry, an absurdly expensive Vitamix, and walked into the reception hall looking for the seating chart. That's when I felt it. That moment. You know the one, where your stomach kind of drops and your mind tries to catch up. My name was scribbled in the bottom corner of the chart, not even typed like the rest, handwritten. Amanda had perfect calligraphy place cards for everyone else. Mine looked like a last-minute addition, and I had to double-check that it actually said Daniel, because it was barely legible. Table 19. When I asked one of the ushers where that was, she glanced at the chart, then at me, and led me through the main hall, out the side door, and into a weird side alcove near the restrooms. And there it was. A folding chair. One. No table, no other guests, no decoration. Just a single white plastic chair with my name card taped to the back. It was directly across from the kitchen entrance, where servers bustled in and out with trays of food. I stared at it, thinking there had to be a mistake. Then Amanda's maid of honor walked by, did a double take, and said, "Oh yeah?" She said you'd be fine back here. She gave a weak shrug like she was embarrassed for me, then walked off before I could even respond. I stood there stunned. I looked around. Every table in the main hall was packed. Even our third cousins from Ohio had prime seating. I could see Amanda laughing at the head table, clinking glasses with her new in-laws. She didn't even glance in my direction. I felt like I was 10 years old again, being told to sit this one out, while Amanda showed off for guests in the living room. I clenched my jaw, turned back to the hallway, and quietly made my way to the cake table. It was near the front of the room, right by the dance floor. I placed the Vitamix gift bag right in the center of the table, deliberately, and walked out without saying a word. No drama, no announcement, just silence. The cool evening air hit me as I stepped outside, and for a moment, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Not because I was sad, because I was furious. Furious that I had let this happen again, that I had told myself, over and over, to be understanding, to give people grace, to not make things awkward. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard someone yell my name. I turned, and there she was, Amanda, in her wedding dress, running across the gravel lot in heels. Her hair was slightly frizzy, her bouquet half forgotten in one hand. "Daniel," she called again, louder, her voice shaky. I didn't move. I just watched her, standing there like some twisted scene out of a rom-com. Except the groom wasn't the one running. She stopped a few feet away, breathless. "Where are you going?" she asked, like it wasn't obvious. "I think you made that pretty clear," I said. Her face fell. "Wait, can we talk?" But I didn't respond. I just stared at her, waiting to see if she'd actually say something meaningful, something real. And just as she opened her mouth to speak again, I raised my hand, not angrily, just enough to stop her. "No," I said. "Not here. Not like this." Amanda blinked, confused. "Daniel," It's my wedding day. I let out a short breath, the kind that's part laugh, part disbelief. Exactly. And somehow, that meant I didn't even deserve a seat at a table. She looked around, as if realizing for the first time we were standing in the middle of the gravel lot in front of the venue. Cars were parked in neat rows, music drifted from the open reception hall doors, and a few guests were staring through the windows. It wasn't meant to be like that, she said quietly. We ran out of space. I shook my head. Amanda, there were 20 tables in there. 10 people at each. I counted. And yet, you somehow found space for everyone else, including people you haven't seen in 5 years, but your own brother got a folding chair by the restrooms. She fumbled with her bouquet, not looking at me. It's not what you think. I raised an eyebrow. Okay. Then tell me. What is it? There was a long pause. She didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. She didn't have a reason. Or maybe she did, but she didn't think I deserved to hear it. And that's when something in me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way. In a quiet, irreversible one. Like a door clicking shut behind you. You know, I said, voice calm but sharp, I've been second to you my whole life. Second to your grades, your boyfriends, your big announcements. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family dinner, it's always been Amanda's story and Daniel's just here. And I never complained. Not once. I showed up. I gave support. I laughed at your jokes. I let you shine, because I thought that's just what family did. Amanda finally met my eyes. Hers were glassy. Daniel, I didn't mean. But this. I cut her off. This was deliberate. You didn't forget me. You minimized me. You put me in the one place where no one would see me. No one would talk to me. You made me invisible. And the worst part is, I actually dressed up and brought you a gift thinking maybe, this time would be different. Her lips quivered. I was just stressed. The planner said we had too many guests, and I thought, you'd understand. You always understand. That line. You always understand. I almost laughed again, but there was no humor left. Yeah, that's what you've always counted on, isn't it? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Please don't do this right now. Everyone's inside. I gestured back toward the venue. Then go back inside. Get back to your perfect wedding. Cut the cake. Toss the bouquet. Pretend everything is picture perfect. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said, and that's what made it worse. Her shoulders sank. What do you want me to do, Daniel? You want me to apologize in front of everyone? You want me to move someone and give you a better seat? Fine, I'll do it. No, I interrupted. What I want is for you to actually value me when there's nothing in it for you. Not out of guilt. Not because someone's watching. Just because I'm your brother. And clearly, that's asking too much. She opened her mouth again, but I didn't wait. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, not even when I heard her start to cry. Not even when she said my name again. I got in my car, closed the door, and just sat there. Hands on the wheel, heart pounding. I didn't start the engine. I just stared out at the venue through the windshield, thinking about everything. The years of small slights, quiet dismissals, jokes at my expense. The way our parents always brushed it off. That's just how Amanda is. The way I always told myself to suck it up. To let it go. But that night, I didn't let it go. I let it sink in. And as I sat there in the driver's seat, watching the reception hall lights flicker behind the trees, I realized something that hit me harder than any of her words. If I hadn't walked out, she would have let me sit in that corner all night. Alone. Unseen. Disposable. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me cold. Numb. A knock on my window jolted me. I turned, expecting Amanda. But it was my mom. I rolled the window down halfway. Daniel, she said softly, like she was talking to a stray dog that had wandered too close. What are you doing out here? What does it look like? I replied, not unkindly, but not warmly either. She sighed, clearly annoyed that I was making a scene. Your sister's crying inside. You can't just walk out like that. I didn't make her cry, I said. She did that all on her own. You're overreacting. That word. Overreacting. I'd heard it 100 times growing up. Whenever Amanda took something from me. Whenever I got upset. Whenever I dared to call out the double standards. I stared at her. Did you know where she put me? My mom blinked. Well, the seating was a little tight. We told Amanda not to invite so many people. You let your only son sit on a folding chair by the bathroom, Mom. It's not a big deal. There it was. Again. I took a deep breath. You all think I'm fine with scraps. You think I'll smile through anything. That I'll always be there, clapping quietly from the sidelines while Amanda gets the spotlight. She crossed her arms. "You're ruining her day." "No," I said. She did that the moment she decided I didn't matter enough to sit with the rest of the family. Mom opened her mouth, probably to say something about how I was being dramatic, how I needed to think about Amanda's feelings. But I rolled up the window before she could speak. Then, and only then, I started the engine. As the car pulled away from the venue, I saw Amanda through the rearview mirror, still in her dress, standing just past the entrance, still crying. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I didn't go home right away. I drove for hours that night, no destination in mind. Just me, the hum of the engine, and this strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Relief, anger, grief, and something else I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. I'd spent so many years telling myself to keep the peace, to be the understanding one, the reasonable one, the one who doesn't stir up conflict. But that night, sitting in my car miles away from the venue, I realized peace isn't real if it only exists at your expense. When I finally got home, around 2 a.m., my phone had 27 missed calls, 12 from Amanda, 7 from Mom, 3 from my dad, which was surprising. He usually let Mom handle the emotional stuff. And the rest? A couple from my cousin Riley, and even one from Aunt Linda. I didn't check the voicemails. I didn't reply to the texts. I turned my phone off and tossed it on the counter like a piece of trash I didn't know anything to. I slept like a rock. The next morning, my phone was still off, and my apartment was quiet. No wedding photos, no speeches, no awkward small talk. Just silence, and I loved it. I made myself a proper breakfast, took a long shower, then finally powered my phone back on. The notifications hit like a tsunami. The family group chat had exploded. Messages flying from every direction. "Amanda, Daniel, where did you go? Everyone's asking what happened. I can't believe you just left. You made me cry on my wedding day. Mom, you owe your sister an apology. People noticed. You embarrassed the family. You better fix this before the brunch today. Dad's lone message. Call your mother." But Riley's message? That one made me pause. I saw what happened. That was messed up. You didn't deserve that. It was the first time anyone in the family had ever said something like that to me. It hit harder than I expected. Still, I didn't respond. I didn't go to the post-wedding brunch either. That morning, I got a follow-up email from the wedding website. One of those automatic "thank you for attending" messages. Amanda had pre-written it, clearly. A smiling picture of her and her husband posing under fairy lights. I hovered over the reply button, then moved to my email settings and marked it as spam. I spent the day doing things I loved, painting, walking around the city, grabbing coffee. It was peaceful. For once, I didn't have to brace myself for a snide remark or a guilt trip. But I knew it wouldn't last. Not with my family. That evening, the real fallout began. Amanda called. I picked up. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Daniel, I think we need to talk." "Now you want to talk?" I didn't mean for it to go the way it did. I was overwhelmed. Things got out of control. "You had a year to plan this, Amanda. Don't insult me with overwhelmed." Silence on her end. Then, "Mom said you're still upset." "I'm not upset," I said. "I'm done." She was quiet again. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do. Because here's the thing, Amanda, I didn't leave just because of the chair. I left because the chair was the final straw. Every family event, every celebration, every chance I had to feel like a part of this family. You've taken that and made me feel like an extra in your movie. And last night, you made it very clear I'm not even an extra. I'm not in the credits at all." She tried the classic manipulation tactic. "So what? You're just going to cut off your family? Over a chair?" "No," I said calmly. "Over years of disrespect. Over being treated like I'm disposable. Over the fact that no one, not you, not Mom, not even Dad, stopped to say, 'Hey, maybe Daniel shouldn't be sitting by the bathrooms.' That's what this is about." I cried. She said, a little more forcefully now. "You walked out of my wedding. Everyone saw. You made your choices," I said. "And so did I." She started to say something else, but I hung up. That week, I didn't respond to the group chat. I ignored every attempt at family intervention. Mom texted again, this time a long paragraph about how I was tearing the family apart and how Amanda felt awful and that I should be the bigger person. I replied with exactly one sentence. "Tell Amanda to return the Vitamix." 2 days later, I got a call from Dad. Now, My dad's the kind of man who only speaks when something's broken or someone's passed away. So when he called, I knew it wasn't going to be a friendly check-in. I don't know what's going on between you and your sister, he said bluntly. But this needs to end. No, it doesn't, I replied. It needs to finally be seen for what it is. What's that? Favoritism. Gaslighting. Years of pretending I'm fine being ignored. He huffed. You've always been sensitive. I laughed. No, I've always been silent. Not the same thing. He didn't get it. I didn't expect him to. And then the real kicker came 3 days later. My mom posted wedding photos on Facebook. The whole family was tagged. Everyone smiling, raising glasses, dancing. But I wasn't in a single photo. Not even in the background. I scrolled through them slowly, carefully. There were over 120 pictures, and not one included me. It was like I had never been there. Like I'd been edited out. That's when I knew this wasn't just a mistake. This was who they were, who they had always been. So I did the one thing they never saw coming. I posted my own photo. It was from the morning after the wedding. Me, standing in front of a mural I'd painted years ago, sunlight on my face, holding a coffee. Caption: sometimes walking away isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's necessary. It got more likes than Amanda's entire wedding album. Friends from college, co-workers, even Riley commented with hearts and clapping emojis. Some messaged me privately saying, I always wondered why you were never at family stuff. Or proud of you, man. Amanda didn't comment, but Mom did. She commented, you're being cruel. I deleted it, then blocked her. That was the day I started cutting ties, not just emotionally, but digitally too. I changed the locks to my apartment. I stopped attending family gatherings. I stopped being available. The next family holiday came and went without me. They called. They texted. I didn't respond because I wasn't their background character anymore. I was gone. 2 months passed. 2 full months of complete silence from me and escalating chaos from them. At first, Amanda kept texting. Nothing angry, just those insincere, placating messages like, hope you're doing okay, can we talk soon? And the occasional, I miss you. I didn't respond. Then came the guilt bomb text from Mom. I don't know what happened to you. Your sister is hurting. And my personal favorite, your absence is ruining our family. But none of them, not a single one, apologized. Not once. They were more upset that I walked away than they were about the reason why I walked away. That told me everything I needed to know. I spent that time focusing on my art. Without the constant emotional weight of trying to belong in a family that treated me like an afterthought, I actually began to feel free. I applied for a gallery showcase. I got accepted. I started selling pieces again. I started living again. Then came Amanda's big mistake. It happened in early spring, around what would have been our family's annual spring fling weekend, a cheesy name Mom came up with years ago where we'd rent a cabin, eat too many marshmallows, and pretend we were a happy family for 3 days straight. This year, I obviously didn't go. But Amanda did something else instead. She posted an open letter on Facebook. She titled it, To My Brother, Wherever You Are. It was long, rambling, self-pitying, full of half-truths and emotional manipulation. She wrote about how life is short, how she never meant to hurt me, and how she wished I would find it in my heart to forgive. That part almost sounded sweet, until she added the line that made my jaw drop. I wish Daniel could understand that weddings are chaotic and people get overlooked. I thought he would be stronger than that. I never expected him to abandon me on the most important day of my life. Boom. There it was. The narcissism, the blame shifting, the entire reason I walked away in the first place plastered online for hundreds of people to see. All under the disguise of healing. And, of course, the post went semi-viral among our extended family and friends. Dozens of comments rolled in, people offering sympathy, saying things like family is everything, you tried your best, or brothers can be so dramatic sometimes. Then someone tagged me. Just one person. A friend from college who had met Amanda once and clearly saw through her nonsense. He wrote, didn't you stick Daniel in a folding chair by the bathroom? LOL, this feels like leaving out a few key details. It was the crack in the dam. Suddenly, more people began asking questions. A few distant relatives messaged me privately to ask if what she said was true. One even said, she made it sound like you just stormed off for no reason. But then someone told me you weren't even seated with the family. I didn't respond directly, but I saw an opportunity. A week later, I posted my own open letter. Not on Facebook, though. I created a blog post, complete with photos. The first photo was my seat, the folding chair next to the bathrooms, with a plate of half-eaten cake sitting on a trash can beside it. I had snapped it with my phone right before I walked out that night. Then I wrote the story. The full story. I explained how I'd been treated like an afterthought at every major family event. How Amanda had handwritten my name on a place card and literally placed me outside the reception hall. How her maid of honor told me to my face, she said you'd be fine back here. I didn't go on a rant. I didn't attack her character. I just stated facts. Calmly. Clearly. With timestamps. I even included a screenshot of the wedding registry confirmation that showed I had gifted Amanda a $600 Vitamix, the same one she never returned or acknowledged. Then I ended with this. Walking away from your family is never easy, but staying where you're constantly made to feel invisible is harder. I didn't ruin Amanda's wedding. She did that when she decided I wasn't worth a seat at the table, literally. I walked away quietly. She went public. So now, here's the truth. Do with it what you will. That post got shared. A lot. Not viral, but enough that word spread through our social circles. My old art professor shared it. So did Riley. Even a few of Amanda's own friends commented supportive things like, "Wow, I never knew. That's awful, and this actually explains a lot." Amanda didn't comment. But 2 days later, Mom called me in a fury. "You had no right to post that online." "Neither did Amanda," I said. "She was trying to reach out to you." "No. She was trying to control the narrative," I snapped. "And I'm done letting her." Then I heard it, the first real silence from my mom in years. Not the passive-aggressive kind. The stunned kind. The kind where she realized, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't going to roll over anymore. I didn't hang up. I waited. Finally, she said, "You embarrassed the family." I laughed. "No, Mom. I told the truth. That's not the same thing." And I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her for a long while. 3 weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No note. No return address. Inside? The Vitamix. Still sealed. That would have been satisfying enough, but karma wasn't done yet. Turns out Amanda's little stunt had consequences. One of her bridesmaids, Tessa, the maid of honor who made the comment about my seat, was a graphic designer who also freelanced for a wedding planning blog. Apparently, she'd been quietly appalled by the whole wedding drama and ended up using Amanda's wedding as a cautionary tale in an article titled, "How Not to Treat Guests at Your Wedding." She changed the names, but the details? Identical. The folding chair. The bathroom placement. The "you'll be fine back here" line. The article blew up. It got reposted on Reddit, on wedding forums, even on a BuzzFeed listicle called Top 10 Worst Wedding Seating Disasters. Amanda didn't just look bad. She became a meme. One photo from her wedding, the head table, cropped to show Amanda laughing while a guest is blurred in the background carrying a folding chair, became a symbol of bad wedding etiquette. She eventually deleted her Facebook. Not long after, Riley texted me, "Did you see the article? Amanda's fuming. Mom says she won't come out of her house." I didn't respond. Because finally, the world saw what I'd always known. Amanda wasn't the golden child. She was just someone who never expected the spotlight to turn the other way. And me? I kept painting. I hosted my first solo exhibit. The piece that got the most attention was a minimalist portrait called Empty Chair. Just a stark white folding chair, set against a dark, echoing background. I never explained it to anyone. I didn't have to. Because people saw it, and they understood. The final text I got from Amanda, months later, was this: "I didn't know you felt that way. I'm sorry. I wish you told me sooner." I didn't reply. Some apologies only come when the damage is irreversible. And some stories are better left as finished paintings, quiet, still, and complete. I'm 35, a father of 2, and apparently the invisible branch of my family tree. My name's Nathan, and I've spent most of my adult life being the one who smooths things over. The peacekeeper. The one who understands when my mom forgets my birthday but flies out for my sister's cat's adoption party. Yeah, that kind of family. My parents divorced when I was 12. Mom got custody of my sister, Claire, and me, but she always treated us like we were living in 2 different worlds. Claire was her golden girl, the dancer, the dreamer, the one who deserved to see the world. I was the practical one, the kid who got told, "You're so responsible, Nathan, you'll understand." Which was code for, "You'll get less because we expect you to handle it." And like a fool, I did. Fast forward to now. I've got 2 kids, Eli, who's 8, and Sophie, who's 6, and a wife who's way too patient with my family's nonsense. We both work hard, live comfortably, and try to keep our distance from drama. But somehow, every time my mom and sister get together, chaos finds me like it's got a GPS signal. The last straw began with one of Mom's family bonding ideas. She texted a big, cheerful message in the family group chat titled Family Vacation, finally, with more exclamation points than any sane person would use. Attached was a photo of a stunning beachfront resort, white sand, turquoise water, palm trees, the whole paradise package. Claire replied first, of course. Yes, I need this so bad after my breakup. Mom followed up immediately. I thought it'd be perfect for all of us. We'll finally spend some quality time together again. Now, I should have known that all of us didn't actually include all of us. I asked the normal dad questions: how many rooms, what dates, how much would we owe, and whether they had stuff for the kids to do. Mom said she was using the shared travel account Dad had set up before he passed. Money meant to help with family trips or emergencies. I didn't question it much. It was one of those accounts we all technically had access to but rarely used. Don't worry, Mom said on the phone, her tone airy and sweet. It's all taken care of. You just pack and show up. It felt nice, actually. For once, I thought maybe Mom wanted us there, not as an afterthought, but as part of the family. My wife, Lena, even said, maybe things are finally changing. We started getting the kids excited. They picked out swimsuits, talked about building sandcastles, and asked if Grandma would take them snorkeling. It was wholesome until the text that shattered it. 3 weeks before the trip, I got a call from Claire. Hey Nate, random question. What room did Mom put you guys in? What do you mean? I asked. Didn't she say she booked the whole thing? She did, Claire said, lowering her voice. But she told me she only reserved 3 rooms. One for her, one for me and Jason, and one for Aunt Debbie and Uncle Paul. I froze. What about me, Lena, and the kids? Dunno, she said with a little laugh. Maybe you're all bunking together in the hallway? When I called Mom, she acted like I was the crazy one. Oh, Nathan, don't make this a thing, she said, that performative sigh in her voice. The resort didn't have enough rooms left. You can just join later or find something nearby. You said it was for everyone. I reminded her, my voice tight. It is, sweetie, she replied, too cheerfully. But I couldn't exclude your sister. She's been through so much lately. You understand, right? Right. Because my sister's bad breakup meant my kids couldn't sleep in a bed. Lena overheard half the call and looked at me, wide-eyed. Wait, so they're going without us? Mom tried to smooth it over. Why don't you come for the second half of the trip? Or maybe next year we'll plan something bigger. The next day, photos started appearing in the group chat. My mom, my sister, her boyfriend, and my aunt and uncle. Cocktails in hand, beach smiles, captions like, finally, family time. My kids saw one over my shoulder at breakfast. Sophie frowned. Daddy, where's Grandma? Is she already at the beach? I tried to play it off. Yeah, honey. She just went early. Why didn't she take us? That question hit harder than I expected. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound cruel. By day 3, it wasn't just beach selfies. They were tagging restaurants, posting stories about jet skiing and dinner under the stars, Claire gushing. Best family vacation ever, 2 hearts. I scrolled through the pictures, jaw tight. They looked so proud of themselves. And not one text, not one call asking how my kids felt being left behind. Then I noticed something weird. One of the screenshots Mom sent to the group chat showed part of a receipt, paid via a shared travel account, ref number 8824. The same account Dad had left in all our names. That night, Lena and I sat in bed, the kids asleep, the glow of my phone lighting up her face. You're telling me they used our shared money for this trip? She asked, her voice calm but deadly. Looks like it, I said. And guess who manages that account? Mom. Lena's eyes narrowed. So we basically paid for them to exclude our kids. I laughed bitterly. Yep. And they didn't even try to hide it. For the next couple of days, I tried to let it go. I told myself it wasn't worth it. But every time I saw another post, a sunset dinner, my mom captioning, so grateful for my family, something in me cracked a little more. The final straw came when Claire sent a photo to the group chat of my mom holding a coconut drink. She'd captioned it, Grandma of the Year. Eli saw it. She's Grandma of the Year? But she didn't even come to my school concert, he said quietly. That one broke me. I walked out to the porch, took a deep breath, and opened my laptop. The shared account was right there, still accessible. I checked the transaction history. Resort booking, restaurant prepayments, car rentals, all charged through it. All refundable. All under my name as co-owner. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then my phone buzzed again. Another photo from the beach, Claire and Jason clinking glasses, Mom smiling like she'd just won something. I don't even remember clicking cancel. It was instinctive. Refund requested. Reservation gone. Flights refunded. Car rentals canceled. Within minutes, I got confirmation emails, money flowing back into the account. Then I transferred the balance to my personal card. A half hour later, the group chat exploded. What did you do? Claire wrote first. Mom's crying. They're saying the hotel won't let them check in. Then Mom called. Twice. Then 3 times. I didn't answer. When I finally picked up, her voice was trembling, not from sadness, but fury. Nathan, you just ruined the entire trip. I leaned back in my chair, watching the refund confirmation emails roll in. You said it was for everyone, I told her calmly. It was, she yelled. But you didn't have enough rooms for my kids, I interrupted. Guess you don't have enough rooms for anything now. There was a pause on the line. Then she whispered, you wouldn't. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Already did. And before she could respond, I hung up. That was the moment everything changed, but I hadn't realized just how deep the fallout would go. Because an hour later, my sister called, screaming through the phone, her voice echoing with the chaos of their ruined vacation. Nathan, you just ruined the whole trip, she shrieked. And I replied, ruined it. I repeated, leaning back in my chair. No, Claire. I think I just made it fair. Her voice cracked through the speaker, raw and furious. You can't just cancel something everyone's counting on. We've been planning this for months. Mom's devastated. I rubbed my forehead, trying to stay calm. You mean the trip you all planned without us? The one where you didn't even book a room for my family? That one. That's not the point, she snapped. Mom didn't mean to exclude you. She thought it'd be too chaotic with your kids there. You know how they are, always running around, touching everything. Claire, I interrupted, my voice dropping. They're 6 and 8, not feral animals. She scoffed. You're overreacting. Mom just wanted a relaxing trip for once. You could have come later or stayed nearby. Right, I said flatly. So my kids could watch their grandma post beach photos while pretending we're part of the family. There was a long silence before she muttered, You've always had a way of making things about you. And there it was, the sentence I'd heard my whole life. When Claire hung up, I just sat there, staring at my phone. Lena walked in a minute later, holding a mug of tea. That was her. Yeah, I said quietly. According to Claire, it's my fault they planned a family vacation that didn't include us. Lena sighed, setting the mug down beside me. It's always your fault with them. She was right. It always was. By evening, the group chat had turned into a full meltdown. Mom was sending paragraphs, long, guilt-laden paragraphs, about betrayal, and how could you do this to your own family? My aunt chimed in with passive-aggressive emojis, and my uncle, bless him, just wrote, Let's all calm down. The funny thing? No one once said sorry. Not once. The next day, I woke up to 10 missed calls from Mom. Then a voicemail. I hesitated, but I listened. Nathan, she began, her voice trembling dramatically. I just don't understand why you'd do something so cruel. We were finally having a nice time, and now everyone's blaming me. You've humiliated your sister in front of Jason's family. I hope you're happy. I wasn't. I wasn't happy at all. I was angry, tired, and mostly disappointed, because even after all that, she still found a way to make herself the victim. By noon, she sent another text. We managed to rebook some rooms using our own cards, but it's costing a fortune. I hope you realize what you've done. You're not the only one struggling, Nathan. Some of us have had a rough year. That part made me laugh, bitterly. A rough year? Claire had just bought a new car 2 months ago. My mom had gone on a cruise in April. Meanwhile, Lena and I were juggling bills and saving for the kids' school trip. Still, a part of me felt bad. Not guilty, but heavy. I opened the photos again. Mom's smile, Claire's perfect poses, the sunlight glinting off the water, and felt a sharp ache in my chest. I didn't want to be the villain. I just wanted fairness. Later that afternoon, Lena's phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. She showed it to me without saying a word. Lena, I know you're reasonable. Can you please talk some sense into Nathan? He's always been emotional when it comes to family matters. We just wanted some peace. Please convince him to send the money back so we can finish the vacation." I stared at it, jaw tightening. She's trying to go around me now. Lena raised an eyebrow. "Oh, she's been doing that for years, hasn't she?" She wasn't wrong. My mom had a long history of triangulating. If she didn't like what one person said, she'd go to someone else. When I was a kid, she'd do it between Claire and me. If Claire misbehaved, Mom would whisper, "Don't tell your sister I'm upset. She's sensitive." If I asked for something, she'd tell Claire, "Your brother's always been so demanding." I didn't realize how twisted that was until adulthood. Over the next few days, the calls and messages didn't stop. They escalated. "Claire, you've turned everyone against us. Do you even care that Mom's crying? Jason's parents think we're broke now. You made us look ridiculous. Mom, I never should have let you near that account. Your father would be ashamed. If you had any decency, you'd fix this before it's too late." The last one stung more than I expected. Dad would be ashamed. He'd been gone 6 years, but that line hit like a dart. He was the only one who'd ever made me feel seen in that family. When he died, Mom took control of the finances and the so-called family fund. She promised to use it fairly, for family trips, emergencies, and shared expenses. I'd trusted her. Turns out, she'd just been quietly using it for her favorites. Out of curiosity, I started digging through the account's history. My stomach turned. There were charges going back 2 years, flights, hotel stays, spa retreats, even a wellness getaway Claire took last summer. All from the shared account. None of it ever included us. Lena leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled. "You've got to be kidding me. Look, there's a payment to Claire's boyfriend's gym." Sure enough, there it was. A $420 charge from 6 months ago. Something inside me clicked. This wasn't just favoritism. It was theft dressed as family bonding. That evening, I decided to talk to Mom one last time. She picked up on the first ring. "Nathan," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound fragile. "Please, we're finally getting settled again, but you have to send that money back. You have no idea how embarrassing this has been." "Mom," I said slowly, "how many times have you used the family account for vacations that didn't include us?" There was a pause. "What are you talking about? Don't lie to me." I checked the records. Her tone hardened immediately. "That account was meant for family use." "Exactly," I said. "Family. As in all of us." "Don't twist things," she snapped. "You've always been so sensitive about these matters. You know how much harder things have been for your sister. She's single again. She needs support." "Support," I repeated. "Like the spa weekends? The wine tours? The gym membership?" Silence. I could almost hear her brain scrambling for a new angle. Finally, she sighed. "You know what? Fine. Maybe I should have asked. But it's not like you've ever needed it, Nathan. You've always been fine. You have a house, a family, a good job. Why can't you just let me take care of Claire for once?" There it was again. That twisted logic. Because I was fine. I didn't deserve fairness. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Do you realize how it feels for my kids to see those photos and wonder why Grandma didn't want them?" Eli cried last night. Sophie asked if they did something wrong. "I didn't mean for them to feel that way," she said softly. "But you're making this worse. You could have just talked to me before doing something so extreme." "I did talk to you," I reminded her. "You told me there wasn't enough room." She hesitated, then muttered, "I didn't think you'd take it so personally." At that point, I just laughed. I couldn't help it. "So excluding your grandkids from a family trip isn't personal?" "You're twisting my words again," she snapped. "You always do this. You make everything dramatic." I'd reached my limit. "Goodbye, Mom." Before she could speak again, I ended the call. That night, Lena found me sitting on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just tired. I think I finally see them for who they are." But things didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the tension spilled beyond the family chat. My aunt posted a vague Facebook status about selfish people who ruin everything. Claire's boyfriend commented with a laughing emoji. And my mom. She texted my cousin to pray for family healing and sent me a link to an article titled "The Cost of Holding Grudges." Then came the message that pushed everything into a new level of insanity. It was from my mom again, but this time, it wasn't guilt, it was threat. "Since you've chosen to behave this way, I think it's best we reevaluate your access to the account. I'll be contacting the bank tomorrow. I read it 3 times. Then I smiled slowly. Because she didn't know I'd already spoken to the bank hours earlier, and what I'd found out would change everything. When I woke up the next morning, I had that uneasy pit in my stomach, the one you get when you know something's about to go very wrong, but you don't know how bad it'll be yet. Lena was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. The smell of coffee filled the air, but her expression told me the day wasn't starting well. "Your mom posted something," she said, sliding her phone toward me. My heart sank before I even looked. It was a Facebook post, a long one. My mom had always been one of those people who shared her private grievances like they were public service announcements. And this one was no different. The post started with, "I never thought I'd have to say this publicly, but sometimes even family can break your heart. We planned a beautiful trip meant to bring everyone closer, and one person's bitterness ruined it for everyone. Some people can't stand seeing others happy." Below it was a picture of the beach with the caption, "Forgiveness is free. Pride is expensive." Hundreds of likes, comments from her church friends saying things like, "Stay strong, dear, and you don't deserve this." My aunt even chimed in with a praying hands emoji and a heart. But what really twisted the knife was a comment from Claire. "You did your best, Mom. Some people just can't handle not being the center of attention." Lena looked at me carefully, waiting for my reaction. I just sat there, silent. My jaw clenched, my chest tight. It wasn't just a public humiliation, it was a rewriting of reality. They were painting me as the villain. By lunchtime, I'd gotten 3 texts from family members who hadn't spoken to me in months. One said, "You should really apologize to your mom." Another asked, "Why would you ruin her vacation like that?" None of them knew the full story. Of course they didn't. Because my mom and sister were spinning it faster than I could catch up. Lena squeezed my shoulder. "You don't owe them anything, Nate." "I know," I muttered. "But this is different. She's dragging my name through the mud. In front of everyone." I tried to ignore it. Really, I did. But the texts kept coming. My cousin Hannah messaged, "Hey, your mom's really upset. She said you stole from her account." "Stole?" I repeated out loud. Lena frowned. "Wait, what?" I opened the message and scrolled up. Hannah continued. "She told everyone at Aunt Debbie's dinner that you emptied the family fund. Said you took it all and left them stranded. People are saying you've changed since you got money." That was the moment I realized just how far Mom was willing to go. Not only had she twisted the truth, she'd flipped it completely. That night, I got an email from the bank. It wasn't from my personal banker, but from the branch manager. My pulse quickened as I opened it. "Dear Mr. Cole, we've received a request from a co-owner, Ms. Margaret Cole, to freeze the shared travel account due to reported unauthorized transactions. As per policy, we have temporarily restricted access until the matter is resolved. Please contact our office within 48 hours to verify your activity." I just stared at the screen. "She filed a fraud claim," I whispered. "Against me." Lena looked up from the couch, her expression shifting from disbelief to anger. "You've got to be kidding." "No," I said quietly. "She's trying to make it look like I stole from them." The irony was almost too perfect. The same woman who'd siphoned off that account for years was now accusing me of theft. I spent the next morning on the phone with the bank. The woman on the other end was polite but cautious. "Mr. Cole, we just need to confirm your authorization for the recent transfers," she said. "I was a co-owner," I explained. "I have every right to make those transactions. You can check the account contract. My name's on it." "I understand," she said, typing something in the background. "However, Ms. Cole stated you acted without consensus, and she has supporting statements from other family members on the account." My stomach dropped. "What other family members?" "Ms. Claire Cole and Mr. Paul Reynolds. My aunt and uncle. Of course. The same 2 people who'd benefited from the trips." I hung up the phone feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Lena sat beside me, rubbing my back. "They're ganging up on you. You knew they'd do this." "Yeah," I muttered. "But I didn't think they'd stoop this low." She hesitated. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and started gathering everything. Screenshots of messages, transaction histories, account contracts, even the original email from the bank when my dad added my name to the fund. My hands were shaking, but my focus was sharp. They wanted a war. Fine. 2 hours later, I got another text from Mom. "You're making things worse for yourself, Nathan. The bank will take this seriously. You should have thought before taking what isn't yours." I typed back, but didn't send it right away. I wanted to say something cutting, something final, but the truth was, I didn't want to give her any more ammunition. Instead, I deleted the draft and set the phone down. But she wasn't done. That evening, while I was helping Eli with his homework, my phone buzzed again. It was a notification. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook post. My heart sank as soon as I saw the preview. It was a photo of me and Mom from years ago, back when things were still good. She'd written, "Sometimes you give everything to your children, and they take it all anyway. I don't know how a mother moves on from this kind of betrayal. Pray for us." Thousands of reactions. Dozens of comments. People writing things like, "No child should treat their mother that way," and "Stay strong, Margaret." Claire commented again, "You're the strongest person I know. He doesn't deserve you." And that was it. That was the moment something inside me broke. I'd spent years tolerating the favoritism, the backhanded compliments, the guilt trips. But this was a public execution of my character. My mom wasn't just punishing me anymore. She was trying to erase me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my dad, how he'd trusted her to manage that account fairly. He'd been meticulous with money, always leaving paper trails, always balancing the books. And then it hit me. Dad used to back up everything. He had kept digital copies of every document related to their finances. The next morning, I dug out an old external hard drive from the box of his things in the attic. It took forever to boot up, but when it finally did, I felt my pulse quicken. There it was, a folder labeled Family Finances. Inside were dozens of scanned PDFs, wills, account forms, even handwritten notes. And right there, in black and white, was a document labeled Travel Fund Agreement, 2017. The file stated, "This account shall be co-owned by Nathan Cole and Margaret Cole. Both parties retain equal rights to deposit and withdraw. No transactions shall be deemed unauthorized by either party." I exhaled slowly. Relief and fury mixed in my chest. She couldn't claim I'd stolen anything. She couldn't even pretend it wasn't mine too. I forwarded the file to the bank with a brief note. Attached is the original account agreement signed by both co-owners. All transactions were made within my rights. Please reinstate full access immediately. I hit send, then sat back. It should have ended there. It should have been simple. But an hour later, Claire called again, this time sobbing. "Why would you drag Dad into this?" she demanded between tears. "You're ruining Mom's reputation. You sent that file to the bank." "Claire, that file proves I didn't steal anything," I said, trying to stay calm. "You're humiliating her," she cried. "Do you know how many people saw that post? She's getting messages from the church, from her friends. Everyone thinks she's a liar now." "Then maybe she shouldn't have lied," I said quietly. There was silence on the other end. Then her voice turned cold. "You're dead to us." Click. I just sat there for a moment, staring at the phone screen. My chest hurt, but it wasn't shock anymore. It was something heavier. The kind of pain you feel when a door that's always been cracked finally slams shut. Lena walked in, holding 2 mugs. "What happened?" "They cut me off," I said simply. "Completely." She set the mugs down gently, then sat beside me. "Maybe that's a good thing." "Maybe," I said softly. "But I think they're not done yet." And I was right. Because 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail, a certified one, from an attorney. It was from my mother. She was suing me for restitution of misappropriated funds and emotional distress. And as I stood there in my kitchen, holding that letter, one thought kept repeating in my head, loud, steady, and cold. She really wants to destroy me. But what she didn't know was that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. The next week felt like watching my life unravel in slow motion. The lawsuit wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a grenade lobbed right into the middle of my family, my job, and my peace of mind. I kept the letter folded on my desk, staring at the words misappropriated funds, as if reading them enough times would make them less absurd. I'd never been sued before. I'd never even had a parking ticket. And now, my own mother was accusing me of theft and emotional damage. Lena tried to stay strong, but I could see the strain in her face. She was the calm one between us, the voice of reason. But this time, she looked shaken. "We can fight it," she said one night, sitting beside me with her laptop open, looking up legal aid options. "You have proof, Nate. You have Dad's files. You did everything by the book." "I know," I said quietly, rubbing my temples. "But you know what they say, truth doesn't matter as much as the story people believe." "And my mom's story?" "Oh," she was telling it everywhere. She'd become a master of selective storytelling. At church, she told her friends her son had drained the account his late father left for the family. To relatives, she said I'd taken advantage of her generosity. To anyone who'd listen online, she posted vague updates about forgiveness and learning who truly loves you. The comments poured in, full of sympathy and outrage. How could a son do that? Stay strong, Margaret. Some people only care about money. I'd scroll through them at night, my chest tightening, my thumb hovering over the reply button. But Lena always stopped me. Don't feed it, she'd whisper. You're not going to win them back by arguing. Let her talk. You focus on the facts. Easier said than done. Even at work, the tension followed me. My boss, a kind but blunt guy named Rick, called me into his office. I don't like bringing personal stuff into this, he said, closing the door. But I've had 2 people mention a Facebook post about family fraud. Is that something you need to handle? I wanted to sink through the floor. It's not true, I said quickly. It's a family matter. My mother's. Well, she's making things up. Rick nodded, uncomfortable. Look, I believe you. But maybe lay low on social media for a while, yeah? That was the moment I realized how much damage a lie could do before the truth ever got its shoes on. The next few weeks blurred together. Court filings, calls from the bank, lawyer consultations that made my stomach hurt when I saw the hourly rates. My mom wasn't just being vindictive, she was being strategic. She'd convinced 2 relatives to act as co-claimants, giving her lawsuit weight. Meanwhile, the bank froze the account indefinitely until the case was resolved. It didn't matter that I'd sent them the signed agreement, or that Dad had explicitly stated both parties had equal rights. Until the legal process ran its course, that money was untouchable. It wasn't just about the money anymore, though. It was the humiliation, the betrayal, the idea that the woman who used to tuck me into bed, who used to tell me I was her rock after Dad died, was now trying to ruin me publicly and financially. Lena caught me one night staring at my dad's old watch, the one he'd given me before he passed. You're thinking about him again, she said softly. Yeah, I said. He'd be furious if he saw this. She nodded. But he'd be proud of you too. You're not screaming, you're not sinking to her level. You're holding steady. I smiled faintly. For now. But the truth was, I was starting to crack. The worst part wasn't the lawsuit. It was the silence from the rest of my family. People I'd grown up with, my cousins, my aunt, even my godmother, stopped calling. Some unfriended me online. Others avoided me entirely. The only message I got came from my cousin Hannah, the one who'd warned me earlier. I don't know what's true anymore, Nate. But you should know Mom and Claire have been telling everyone you hacked the account. They said the bank's investigating for fraud. Hacked. Fraud. Words I never thought would be attached to my name. Lena saw me reading the message and took my phone gently from my hand. Enough, she said. You're torturing yourself. You can't keep letting them live rent-free in your head. I wanted to agree. I wanted to let go. But part of me couldn't. Because it wasn't just about what they were saying. It was about the fact that they thought they could get away with it. Again, I started waking up early, before the kids, before the noise of the day. I'd sit in the quiet of the living room, laptop open, organizing every scrap of evidence. Screenshots, receipts, emails from the bank, timestamps from the refund confirmations. It was obsessive, maybe, but it gave me something to control. And somewhere in that fog of exhaustion and anger, I started to notice patterns. Mom hadn't just been using the shared account for vacations. There were payments labeled consultation fees, renovation advance, wellness retreat, and even private donation. The amounts varied, $400 here, $1,200 there, but they added up. Tens of thousands. I clicked one entry from last year, furniture payment, Claire. Then another, flight upgrade, Paul. She'd been running her own little kingdom with that account, and now she wanted to make me the scapegoat. That realization changed something in me. The sadness started to fade, replaced by something colder, something sharper. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to expose everything. Lena noticed the shift before I said anything. You've got that look, she said one morning, sipping her coffee. The one you get right before you do something your family's not going to like. I smirked faintly. They already don't like me. She tilted her head. Fair. What are you planning? Nothing yet, I said. But I'm done letting them control the story. The next few days, I went into quiet overdrive. I called the bank again, requested official transaction records, and even dug through old email receipts from my mom's address, some of which were still automatically forwarded to the shared inbox my dad had set up before he passed. And that's when I found the jackpot. An email from 3 years ago, subject line, Travel Fund Withdrawal Confirmation. The body read, Dear Mrs. Cole, your withdrawal of $9,400 has been processed successfully. Please note, co-owner Nathan Cole will be notified of any withdrawals exceeding $10,000. Meaning, she'd intentionally kept her withdrawals under 10 grand so I wouldn't be alerted. It was all there. The pattern, the manipulation, the deceit. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. You clever little fox, I muttered. You've been doing this for years. Lena walked in, drying her hands on a dish towel. What's that look? I turned the laptop toward her. Proof. Real proof. She's been skimming money under the limit that would have alerted me. Lena leaned in, reading carefully. That's fraud, Nate. I nodded, and she accused me of it. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, I started taking quiet steps. I called a friend from college, Ben, a corporate attorney who owed me a favor. I explained everything, from the fake accusations to the hidden withdrawals. He listened patiently, then asked me to forward him the documents. Nate, he said after a pause, this isn't just a defense case anymore. What your mom did qualifies as misappropriation. If you wanted, you could countersue. The word hung in the air, countersue. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure I could stomach it. Suing my own mother felt wrong, no matter how justified it might be. But Ben wasn't finished. You said she's been spreading false claims publicly, right? That's defamation, especially since it's affecting your work and finances. You could build a solid case. When I hung up, Lena was watching me from across the room. Well, he says I have a case, I said quietly. A strong one. She set her mug down and crossed her arms. Then do it. I blinked. You think I should sue my own mom? Lena's voice softened, but her eyes stayed steady. I think you should stop letting her destroy you. I didn't answer, but the decision was already forming somewhere deep inside me. For the next week, I played it calm. To everyone else, I looked like I was retreating, answering no calls, posting nothing, ignoring the noise. Mom must have thought she'd finally broken me. She probably told her friends, Nathan's coming around. He knows he was wrong. But in reality, I was just waiting for the bank's audit, waiting for the documents from Ben, waiting for the perfect moment to turn all of this around. And when that moment came, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. It would be surgical, because I wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake anymore. I wanted accountability. And for the first time in my life, I had the power to make that happen. Mom didn't know it yet, but the game had already shifted. I wasn't her quiet, forgiving son anymore. I was the storm she didn't see coming. When the storm finally started to take shape, it didn't begin with shouting or a grand gesture or even an email. It began with silence. For the first time in months, I didn't answer a single one of my mom's texts. I didn't open her voicemails. I didn't rise to the bait of her Facebook posts or her guilt trips through relatives. I just disappeared. That alone drove her crazy. I'd learned something crucial from watching her all these years. She thrived on control. If she could get you to defend yourself, she won. If she could get you angry, she won. If she could get you to apologize just to keep the peace, she really won. So I stopped playing. Instead, I focused entirely on what mattered, building the truth, brick by brick. Ben, my lawyer friend, was a godsend. You've got a pattern of financial misconduct and public defamation, he said one night over video call, his tone calm and analytical. That's not just a defense. That's leverage. He'd already reached out to the bank's legal department on my behalf, requesting a complete transaction record, not just from the last year, but since the account was opened. It took a week, but when it arrived, it was devastating. Dozens of questionable withdrawals. Thousands of dollars spent on things no one could reasonably argue were family-related. Plane tickets to Italy for wellness retreats. A $2,800 payment to a boutique in New York, labeled personal consulting. And buried between it all, a recurring $600 payment every month to something called Bright Horizons Retreats. Ben frowned as we went through the files together. What's that? No idea, I said, typing it into Google. The search results made my stomach turn. It wasn't a retreat, it was a private rehab facility. One that catered to lifestyle exhaustion and discreet recovery. Lena leaned over my shoulder, frowning. Isn't that where Claire went 2 years ago? When she said she was in Bali for a healing vacation? I scrolled further down the records. The same charge appeared around that time. She hadn't gone to Bali. She'd gone to rehab, paid for by the family fund. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. So that's why Mom was so desperate to keep that account quiet. Ben nodded. This is a pattern of concealed withdrawals and misrepresentation. You can't overstate how serious this is. She used shared funds to pay for personal and third-party expenses under false pretenses. In other words, fraud. For days, I kept gathering more. I found email confirmations, matching dates, even receipts forwarded from Mom's address. One subject line read, "Payment received. Thank you for your continued stay with Bright Horizons." That was the nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, my mom must have sensed the shift because she started reaching out again, this time with fake warmth. "Hi, sweetheart. I know things got out of hand, but maybe we should talk? Family shouldn't fight like this. Claire's still upset, but I think she'll come around once you apologize. Don't ruin what's left of our family over something so small." Something so small. Every message she sent chipped away at what little pity I had left. Still, I waited, because timing was everything. When the court summons finally came in the mail, I didn't panic. I smiled. The date was set for the following month. I had 4 weeks to turn everything around. Ben and I spent hours drafting our counterclaim. It wasn't just a defense, it was an offense. We included proof of her hidden withdrawals, the original account contract, screenshots of her defamatory posts, and copies of the emails showing she'd used the money for personal gain. The best part? Ben had quietly looped in a forensic accountant to verify every transaction. By the time we were done, the document was nearly 50 pages long. When we filed the counterclaim, the shockwave was immediate. Within 24 hours, Mom called. Twice. Then Claire. Then my aunt. I didn't answer. 2 days later, I got a text from my mother that read, "I can't believe you do this to me. After everything I've done for you." The irony was breathtaking. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the text to Ben. He chuckled when he read it. "She's panicking. Don't respond to anything she sends." So I didn't. But then, the second wave hit. Claire posted another status online, something vague but pointed. "It's always the quiet ones who betray you first. I guess money changes people." I could have ignored it, but this time, I didn't have to. Because Ben had advised me to document everything. Every post. Every message. Every whisper of slander. And once again, Mom played right into it. She began sending guilt-ridden emails. "If you drop the case, I'll talk to the bank about lifting the freeze. This is tearing the family apart. You're breaking your father's memory. Claire can't sleep because of what you've done." The last one made me pause. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something. She wasn't worried about the truth. She was worried about exposure. And that gave me an idea. I started making copies of everything and compiling them into a single folder titled Family Fund Documentation for distribution. It wasn't malicious. It was insurance. Then I reached out to one more person, my dad's old financial advisor, a man named Charles who'd handled their affairs years ago. He was in his 60s now, semi-retired, but he remembered my dad well. When I explained the situation, he sighed heavily. "Your father set that fund up for transparency," he said. "He wanted both of you to have oversight. I warned your mother not to make unilateral withdrawals. Would you be willing to put that in writing?" I asked. He paused. "If I have the original documents, and I think I do, yes." A week later, an email arrived with a scanned copy of his old advisory notes. One line stood out like it was highlighted in neon. "Advised both parties that co-ownership implies equal and unrestricted authority. Neither party may claim sole ownership or misappropriate funds for non-shared purposes." I sent it straight to Ben. He called 5 minutes later. "Nathan, this is bulletproof." By the time the court date arrived, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. The morning of the hearing, I put on my suit, the one I'd worn to my dad's funeral. Lena squeezed my hand before I left. "Whatever happens, you've already won," she said softly. When I walked into that courthouse, Mom was already there. She looked smaller than I remembered, sitting beside Claire, both dressed in dark, somber clothes like they were attending a funeral. My aunt sat behind them, whispering something. Mom glanced up when I entered. Her eyes flickered with something, anger? Fear, before she quickly looked away. We didn't speak. When the session started, her lawyer launched into the same script she'd been spreading for months. how I drained the account, how I'd caused emotional distress, how my actions were malicious and financially damaging. I didn't even flinch. When it was Ben's turn, he rose calmly, adjusted his glasses, and began to dismantle everything point by point. He presented the signed account agreement, the financial records, the hidden withdrawals, the rehab payments, and the advisory letter from Charles. Each document hit the courtroom like a hammer. Mom's lawyer started to stammer. Claire looked pale. But Ben wasn't finished. He ended with a simple statement. My client has not only acted within his rights, but has, in fact, uncovered a pattern of concealed financial activity by the claimant. We are submitting a counterclaim for damages, defamation, and misuse of shared assets. The room went quiet. When it was over, the judge postponed the final ruling to review the evidence. Mom left the courtroom without a word. Outside, Claire caught up to me. Her face was pale, her voice low. How could you do this? She asked. I looked at her calmly. I didn't do anything. I just stopped covering for Mom. Her eyes welled up, but there was something else there, guilt, maybe, or realization. That night, when I got home, Lena was waiting on the porch. She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around me. And for the first time in months, I felt still. It wasn't over yet. The judgment was still pending, but I could feel the power shift. For once, I wasn't the one reacting. I wasn't the scapegoat. I was holding the truth. And when it finally came out in full, I knew it would hit harder than anything my mother could have imagined. Because I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was dismantling the empire of lies she'd built brick by brick, one document, one receipt, one truth at a time. And soon enough, everyone would see her for who she really was. The judgment came down 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning. I remember it vividly because it was raining, one of those quiet, steady rains that seems to muffle the world around you. I sat in my car outside the courthouse, windshield wipers brushing rhythmically, trying to steady my breathing. Lena was beside me, calm as ever, her hand resting on mine. You ready? She asked. Yeah, I said, even though I wasn't. Let's finish this. Inside, the courtroom was half full. My mom sat on the left side with her lawyer and Claire, both whispering anxiously. Claire avoided my eyes this time, and Mom looked hollow. Gone was the smug confidence she'd had during the first hearing. She looked like someone who'd been awake all night rehearsing an argument that had already lost its power. The judge arrived, papers in hand. Everyone stood, then sat. His voice was even and steady as he began reading through the summary of findings. First came the dry formalities, the dates, the motions, the legal jargon. But then, the words that would change everything. After reviewing all evidence presented, including the account documentation, transaction history, and signed agreements, the court finds that the defendant, Mr. Nathan Cole, acted within his full legal rights as a co-owner of the shared family account. My chest loosened as if I'd been holding my breath for months. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court recognizes a documented pattern of unauthorized withdrawals made by the claimant, Mrs. Margaret Cole, which predate the disputed transactions by several years. These withdrawals were used for personal and third-party expenses without the defendant's consent, thereby constituting misuse of shared assets. The courtroom went still. My mom's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Claire stared at the table, pale and unmoving. The judge kept going. In light of these findings, Mrs. Cole's claims of misappropriation and emotional distress are hereby dismissed with prejudice. The defendant's counterclaim for defamation and damages will be partially upheld, with monetary compensation to be determined. I didn't move. I couldn't. It wasn't victory I felt. It was something quieter, deeper. Closure. The judge set a restitution amount, $48,000 in damages, plus legal fees. But the money wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that every lie, every whisper, every accusation had been publicly dismantled. When the hearing adjourned, I stood slowly. My mother didn't look up. Her lawyer leaned in to speak, but she just shook her head, trembling. Claire followed her out, her heels clicking sharply on the tile. For a second, she hesitated near the door. Our eyes met. There was something raw in hers, regret, maybe, or shame. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then lowered her gaze and left without a word. Lena squeezed my hand. It's over, she whispered. Yeah, I said softly. It's over. But it wasn't really over, not yet. The fallout came in waves. Within days, the news rippled through the family. My aunt texted me first, a short message that read, "I had no idea, Nathan. I'm sorry for believing what I heard." Then my cousin Hannah called. "They're not taking it well," she said. "Your mom's furious. She's telling everyone the court got it wrong, that you manipulated the evidence. But no one's buying it anymore." Apparently, the official court documents had spread through the family chat. Someone must have forwarded them. Once people saw the receipts, the pattern, the rehab payments, the whole facade cracked. For years, my mother had played the benevolent matriarch, the selfless caregiver. But when the truth surfaced, that she'd been secretly draining family money for her own use, people started reevaluating everything they thought they knew. Even her church friends, the ones who used to comment "stay strong" on every post, went silent. A few even deleted their comments. The public sympathy she'd built collapsed overnight. 3 days after the ruling, I got an email. The subject line read, "I don't know what to say." It was from Claire. She wrote, "I was angry because I believed her. She told me you were trying to take everything from us. I didn't see what she was doing. I didn't want to. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you'll believe that I didn't know. Mom isn't doing well. She's talking about moving away for a while. I don't even know where she'll go." I read the message twice, then closed my laptop. I didn't reply, not right away, anyway. I didn't know what to say either. Over the next few weeks, life started to feel normal again. A new kind of normal, quieter, more peaceful. The house wasn't filled with tension anymore. My phone didn't buzz every 5 minutes with accusations. Lena noticed the change first. "You smile in your sleep again," she said one morning, half joking. I laughed softly. Guess my subconscious finally stopped arguing with them. With the settlement money, I didn't buy anything extravagant. I used it to set up savings for the kids, accounts in their names, untouchable by anyone but them. It felt symbolic, like breaking the cycle. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello." A pause. Then a familiar voice. "Nathan, it's your mother." Her tone was fragile, shaky. "I wanted to call before you heard it from someone else. I'm selling the house," she said. "I can't stay here. People keep whispering. The church doesn't look at me the same anymore." I said nothing. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she continued. I didn't think it would end like this. I thought I was helping everyone. I thought," her voice broke, "I thought I was doing what your father would have wanted." "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You did what you wanted and used Dad's name to justify it." Silence. She sniffled, then said, "Claire's moving in with a friend. I'll figure something out. Take care of the kids, okay?" I wanted to feel anger or vindication, but all I felt was tired. "Goodbye, Mom." I ended the call. After that, I didn't hear from her again. Not directly, anyway. Months passed. The seasons changed. One morning, Hannah sent me a photo of a real estate listing. My childhood home, up for sale. Empty rooms, stripped of furniture, no trace of the life that had once filled it. It was strange, seeing it like that. I drove by one afternoon, just once. The lawn was overgrown, the windows shuttered, the mailbox hanging crooked. For a moment, I parked across the street and just watched. The ghosts of my childhood seemed to flicker in those windows. Birthdays, dinners, fights, apologies that never really were apologies. Lena called me while I sat there. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said after a pause. "Just saying goodbye, I guess." "Good," she said gently. "Because you don't owe that house anything anymore." She was right. In the months that followed, life felt lighter. The kids thrived, school went well, work improved. The cloud that had hung over me for years, that invisible weight of guilt and manipulation, was gone. Claire and I exchanged a few cautious messages here and there. Nothing deep, just updates. She'd moved to a new city, started therapy, and was trying to figure herself out. I wished her well. As for Mom, word eventually got around that she'd relocated somewhere quiet, a small town near the coast. No social media, no posts, just silence. And honestly, that was fine by me. One evening, months later, I was putting Eli and Sophie to bed. Sophie looked up at me sleepily and asked, "Daddy, are we ever going to see Grandma again?" I paused. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly. "Maybe someday. But right now, I think Grandma needs to learn some things on her own." Eli frowned. "Like what?" I smiled faintly. "Like what it means to treat people fairly." They both nodded like that made perfect sense, and I kissed their foreheads goodnight. After they fell asleep, I stepped out to the porch. The rain had started again, soft, steady, cleansing. I thought about everything that had happened. The lies, the silence, the courtroom, the years of bending backward for people who would never do the same. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was standing on the outside of my own family. I'd built something new, smaller, quieter, but real. Lena joined me a minute later, slipping her arm around my waist. "You're quiet," she said softly. I smiled, watching the rain blur the streetlights. "Just thinking about how peace looks nothing like I expected it to." She rested her head on my shoulder. "And yet, it suits you." I looked out into the distance one last time, toward the horizon where the storm clouds broke apart, faint sunlight peeking through. Then I exhaled and said, almost to myself, "Turns out, sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's outgrowing them."